I'm auditioning for Brave, which is this one Japanese company.
Oh,
They're the same people that they have an English like subsidiary company now, but they're the ones who is in it. I don't know. There's some threads though with the links for it. And I've seen
interesting.
their models before, so they look pretty good.
So it's like a small-ish corpo.
It's a big corpo.
It's a big
I'm
corpo.
trying to remember like the big talents, but it's out of my head right now. I can't remember.
I'm very ignorant of VTuber corpos because the only ones I know are Hololive, Niji, and FaZe, and that's it. Like you couldn't I can't be bothered to remember any other ones, and even out of those three, I only watch the Hollow Girls and only the Japanese ones.
Yeah, Hololive, that's the biggest successor. All the other ones like Niji Sanji.
Niji Japan is doing pretty good. Like
Oh,
they're a stable business, and they
they had a
collab.
lot of people dropping out though.
Really, the Japanese branch did?
Yeah, they had a lot of drama. That's a bunch of people started dropping out of it and then kind of throwing shade at the like the
Uh,
business. I think they had like some incident where I don't know. Don't like fact check this. The recording interest.
some DJ dude was like posting flesh pics of the talent, right? Like soft doxing them.
Yeah, and so a lot
Ah,
of people were
but he
not
was like a
liking that.
contractor. He wasn't staff, if I recall. He was like a dude from some recording company who did their audio mixing.
Oh, so that's what ended up happening with it then.
I don't remember. I don't follow the drama too closely because I don't care. Like I watch the
Yeah.
Hollow Girls. The Japanese Hollow Girls are nice to watch. I have like my three go-to that I watch, and that's it. And I'm good.
What are
I
your
wa
go-tos?
Hosho Marin, Yuzuki Choko, and the third spot is like variable. Sometimes I'll watch Noelle. I kind of soured on her a little bit, so it's considered uncouth to to discuss the exact reason for that.
Oh
Uh,
no.
what's the other ones that I watch? Because the other ones I watch like sporadically on and off. So yeah, I'd say like the third spot is free choice. It's up in the air right now. I'm still looking for my third favorite Hollow Girl.
Still looking.
Yeah.
Open for suggestions.
Yes, currently auditioning for third best Oshi.
Mine right now, well, my top one's always been Gora. She's so like she's just adorable.
Well, yeah, shame she doesn't stream.
Yeah, but I enjoy watching her stuff
I
every now
like
and
her
then.
singing. Her singing is nice because the most exposure I've had to her is her participating in Maureen's musical stuff, like when she has big concerts.
Oh yeah. Well, she streams on YouTube, so it's easy. It's easy to watch their stuff.
Yeah. None of them are on Twitch, if I recall correctly, right?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I remember the third one, Mio. I'm watching more Mio now.
No, nice.
Yeah. Ever since she clamped back like very hard against people who were trying to start up a whole protest in her chat room, and they were just summarily banned, like based. She's like, don't bring that shit
Everyone got
into my
wiped.
exactly like she just don't bring that shit into my chat room, and then the ban hammer came out, and they just all got fucking smothered across the walls, just pink misted them.
Is there any other agencies you watch, or is it
No, just
just
hollow.
Hollow?
Just hollow. I used to watch the like the OG indies. I started with Kizuna Eye. I enjoyed Pimaru when when she was Kaguya Luna. So that was fun. I forget. So either both or one of them got bought out for Sony, if I recall correctly, and then they just murdered the property basically.
Oh, I don't remember who.
They're still trying to dig up the corpse of Kizunai as we speak. They're trying to revitalize her socials. They're like posting
It's
shit.
it's
They're
not gonna
advertising
work.
products. It's not going to work.
It was too messy.
They're delusional completely. The boomers do these are boomers who are trying to understand VTubers. They even made they've made an anime based on the property. Do you know that there's a Kizuna Ai tie-in anime?
I think I've seen something about that.
I think it's what
S-
Kizuna LL, I think it's called.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is
something like that.
so bad. It's like watching a car crash with no survivors. I caught it as it was started airing in Japan, and I'm like, damn, this is shit.
What about the other? What's it called? Ah, my brain is slipping right now.
Other OG indies.
The indies, yeah. What about
I
like
watch.
Iron Mouse or something
I
like that?
don't. I don't. I think the only English language indie that I still watch sporadically is Kami, and that's it.
Hmm.
Because she's like one of the OGs.
No elfin psyop for you?
Uh, Elfin is not an OG. She started later than I did.
Well, I'd say at least in terms of like indies.
Eh? Not. Listen, like I'm on good terms with Elfin. I respect the hustle. I respect how the powerful marketing that was allegedly organic. I
Those who know.
listen. I as of right now, I fully accept that there are like dedicated hardball elfin simps. I accept the reality that that is now a thing. There are actual people who are like that. Did Elfin self shill like on every surface that would accept a post on the boards? Yes, she absolutely did. She shilled on Phase Connect. She shilled on like every thread inside of the VT board, and good for her because she's managed to convert
She's
that into
popping off. Yeah.
she's a stable 3 view, isn't she? She's very much in her Pippa arc.
It's going really well for her.
There you go. Like, see, I have like my own how should I put this? I struggle from having taste. That sounded bad. But like she's trying to like appeal to gun guys, and she's doing that with like airsoft weaponry.
Yeah, I saw the nib on it.
I understand that you live in the UK, also known as the United Caliphate. I know that you can't have guns there. Can you just at least be like Mako Fusame? Like have some dignity about your situation.
Well, it's LARP. It's very LARPy right now.
Ah, LARP the correct way. Damn it. Like at least play some Ready or Not.
Oh no.
Like gun down a compliant civilian while screaming taser taser taser. Like do the female cop LARP.
But people are falling for it, so
Some people are. Well, it's
it's
not even fall. Listen, people will watch what they'll watch. People can say that I am falling for whatever the Hollow Girls are LARPing at. I don't know. I don't pay enough attention to their quirky personalities or whatever the hell else. Uh, if people like to watch something, God bless them, watch it. All I do is sit on the sidelines and I have to consistently remind people that like you watch the VTubers, sure. Just remember that the women on the internet are not real. She will not fuck you. As long as you have that understanding, good for you. Consume the content that you find enjoyable, whatever you like having playing in the background, or whatever you like engaging with more actively in the chat room.
but hey, it's the whole like parasocial LARPing that's working out.
I don't know. I don't know if it's that's working out. I'm not going to dissect it any deeper.
I got it.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
I have my malding male VTuber message.
No, but the male VTubers on the whole side of the internet get run over, trampled.
I still did you so Naturally, you don't watch my streams. Who am I kidding? You didn't know I was a VTuber until what? Until last December?
Yeah, completely went over like I didn't know. I didn't
who
know.
who is this random chatter with his own emotes?
I knew you were like you were going around, but I didn't really expect you to be a VTuber.
Yeah, I was
Mainly,
probably.
I guess it was I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I wasn't expecting it. I knew you were like a mutual of mutuals, but I
Hmm.
wasn't entirely sure.
Well, now you know. But the point I was making is, I got so desperate that I modded Desktop Mate to animate like a big tittied anime girl instead of the stock model,
Oh no.
so that I still have like a pair of jiggling tits on stream, but I can claim that I've preserved my dignity by not taking the babby pill.
How's that been going?
Uh,
How'd that go?
I mean, the tits are jiggling occasionally whenever I'm not playing a resource intensive game. It's there. Uh, Chat seems to be fairly pleased. Although they were interestingly enough, they were more pleased with the various meta models from me side, as opposed to just having a scantily clad anime woman.
Oh yeah, Miside is doing like running laps all around everyone. I still have yet to play it though.
I'm going to avoid spoiling it for you, but it is unironically game of the year. Like it is the best
Huh?
game that was released in 2024, like hands down. There's not a better game. Like AAA titles included.
I feel like I'm being lied to.
No, no, no. I'm being dead ass right now. I'm completely deadpan. I believe this. It is a small dev team. It is a single vision project. It is meticulously executed. I'm not going to say flawlessly because there's a little indie jank in there, but there's a clear vision. There was extremely good execution. The dev teams the dev team knew what they were doing. The script was written. There were the script, from what I can surmise, two two parallel scripts were written with the Japanese script taking priority. That's why all of the lip syncing is done for like the Japanese sentence structure and sentence length, and
Oh
everything else
shit.
is sort of downstream from it. And they didn't cut corners. They got a good industry VA to do all of the voices. They got a VA that has good range, so it doesn't sound samey. You don't really catch the fact that it's, the same VA doing a lot of the work.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they just delivered. They delivered what's colloquially referred to as that king shit. So it's hard recommend. There's just not a better game that released in 2024, and I will fight people over that statement. The Warhammer 40K nerds can cope and seethe with Space Marine 2. I'm sorry, but Space Marine 2 is not like, it's not a novel property. It doesn't it's doing what Space Hulk Deathwing did poorly. It gave you the power fantasy of being the 8 foot tall genetically augmented space racist and executed it well. Which, thumbs up, good shit. I'm all on board for that. That's not a novel idea. You did an old idea well. Hats off, fantastic. Not game of the year. Get bent.
I haven't played Warhammer or through like any of the Space Marine games either, so I'm completely losing out on that portion of
You
the
need
gaming culture.
It's so Warhammer is not really gaming culture. It's Warhammer, especially 40K Warhammer, it's like nerd shit concentrate. It's a subculture that like self-identifies people who have not touched grass for protracted periods of time. It's basically it
Neat.
is being into Warhammer 40K is like a litmus test for covert autists, because you need, in order to engage with the media, you need to have buy-in into the setting, and the setting is just so vast and ridiculous that like most people will just glaze over it because they don't understand half the shit that's going on. And then you have the people who are into 40K like myself, who are just going to rabbit hole into the lore, and the lore goes back like 30 like 10,000 years, and there's internal politics between the factions. Fascinating shit. Just unending source of media. That's why there are so many games being finally made with it, because GW got their pulled their ass out of their pulled their heads out of their asses and started actually giving the license to good developers.
Hmm.
So like you need to find your gateway drug, and then you get into the hobby, and then you just never recover.
Never get out of it either. That's like the
Nah.
one thing that I've seen. Like if people play Warhammer, usually they play that for forever. That's it. That's their one game.
Especially if they get to the stage of doing the plastic cocaine, that's it. That's over. They are never coming back. Once they start painting minis, it is completely
Oh no,
Jover.
no, they're wifeless for the rest of their lives.
Oh no, no, no. They can have like they'll be functioning members of society. Like I know dudes who paint minis who have wives, and like they're high functioning members of society. But when the sun goes down, they revert to that primeval nerd state.
God, I've seen so many videos of the figure painting.
They're never leaving the plantation at that point. That's it. You never drop the plastic cocaine. It's pretty to
God,
watch. I was this close to starting painting minis.
to getting into it.
I almost started it because the Thousand Sons, which is like my favorite legion, um, especially like while they were still a loyal. Okay, see, like I'm already starting to feed you lore, but basically, I have a favorite faction in Warhammer. Once they had updated minis, I started watching videos about how those are painted, and I almost took the
Oh
plunge.
no.
Yeah,
They were
I was
fishing for you.
very close. The only thing that stopped me was I looked up what a game of tabletop Warhammer looked like, and I watched the entire recording, and I was like, I would rather kill myself.
Usually, tabletop games, it doesn't like translate well from
Yeah.
actual. Like it's so much more complex.
It's not about the complexity for me. It's about just the payoff is not there. Like I'm going to spend an upward of 30 hours a week painting the minis after I've paid my own money for the minis, to then go to a place that is outside of my home, interact with, God forbid, other people with questionable personal hygiene, in order to still not have fun. I
Yeah,
think
too
I'm
much
good.
at your expense.
Yeah.
I almost fell into a similar thing with Gundam figures.
Oh,
They're so expensive too, but if you look at Gundam communities, it's the whole like it started from the whole sticker placement stuff. Like, maybe it'd be fun to like put stickers on something and put it together, and then you start looking at the kit videos and then going into the Gundam subreddits and stuff. Which, by the way, there is one where they do like a Secret Santa every year, which didn't help when I was trying to avoid getting into it because it's so expensive.
yeah. I by Gundam, do you mean just like already like pre-existing pre-built Gundams, or are we talking Gunpla?
What is the difference?
Gunpla is the ones that you need to cut out from the
Yeah,
wireframe and assemble.
yeah, those,
Ah,
which
that's
are even
that.
more time consuming.
It's a rough hobby. Yeah.
I think I stick to Legos. That's about the extent. I'm not sitting there with an X-Acto knife trying to cut out little plastic things and
Yeah.
add them to other plastic. I think I'd blow my brains out.
Do you have a Lego set that's like your white whale?
No, I just there's nothing like I don't particularly want to look for expensive ones just because of how it like Lego's already super expensive.
Yeah.
It's overpriced, it's overmarketed. Um
Well, name a competitor though. Like the reason Lego costs so much is because it costs a lot to make it to that consistent level of quality. Like
yeah, and I
that's
understand
what
that,
Lego
but
is actually selling, is that you buy a box of Lego anywhere in the world, And regardless of whether you bought it right now or 20 years ago, like the 2x2 flat block is going to be the exact same, made out of the exact same plastic that's not going to be discolored off of UV exposure.
Yeah, or break apart because of
Yeah,
wear.
yeah,
And I
exactly.
do recognize that, but at the end of the day, when you're sitting there and you got like, let's say you drop like $120 on some medium set, which they used to be cheaper.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they used to be like $80, and then you're just sitting there at night. Like I spent $120 on fucking plastic. The enjoyment of plastic, like that, like introspection.
Yeah. Yeah. I say that as I as I look over my shelf of anime figures.
Mine are right in front of me too, so I'm looking at my my Miku
So
figure instead.
maybe Lego still does it's kind of less of a steep uh a more reasonable ask there, I think.
Yeah, I don't know because anime figures are a little bit more inexpensive than Legos. Like,
Are
yeah,
they
upon
though?
release, you have
Are
to
they
if you
though?
import from Japan.
I don't know. I bought a lot of my stuff from like I say thrift stores. They're secondly like reseller stores for older run figures. And you get a good bargain on those. I still paid a pretty penny for some of these. Like I have an Azur Lane figure that I bought for like $70 because it was like I actually bought that one from the official store because it was the absolute last one that's no longer made and they just had like
Ooh,
remaining stock there.
oh, that's a
Um
good find then.
yeah. I got a pretty nice, pretty good condition figure for like 3,000 yen, which is just the throwaway price for a figure because part of the plastic on the box was missing, so that downgrades it already.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I
I
hate
think
keeping the boxes, but there's if you want
I
to
keep the
resell them,
boxes. I keep the
yeah.
boxes not for reselling because I kind of I aim to live in a way that would never force me to sell things I buy, basically.
Hmm.
I think that reselling is sometimes necessary. I'm not going to argue with that. I just would prefer to not put myself into a place financially where I need to sell off anime figures.
Yeah, but I'm seeing it in a way where sometimes I'll get a figure for myself. Like right
Uh-huh.
now, I have a Diego Brando figure that I
Mm-hmm.
bought a long time ago, but at this point it's like I don't really I'm not super attached to it, and
Uh-huh.
maybe it'd be nice to sell it and trade it for another something
Oh,
I'd like
okay.
more nowadays.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I keep the boxes mostly out of moving considerations for when I have to move because
Oh
that's
yeah.
very yeah, because well, I do plan moving on I do plan on moving relatively soon. So having the container that's designed for that particular figure ensures that it's not going to be damaged in transit and it makes all of the figures box shaped, which means I can fill a box with said boxes and they're not going to rattle around while I move them around.
Yeah. I mean, so far I've kept all my boxes, but it gets to a point sometimes where it's I don't know, I'm keeping the boxes somewhere, like in
Hmm.
storage, and they're just kind of starting to pile up like
Yeah,
box.
that's my closet right now. I need to do a deep clean of that. Just organize the boxes along the walls at the very least so that they're out of the way. I need a new toolbox because like half of my tools are outside of the toolbox because they no longer fit. Because as part of becoming an adult, I'm trying to buy sort of little bits and pieces that I need. Anything ranging from I don't know, from Allen key sets to little rubber washers of different diameters for like when I need a different holster fitting or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just piling up because I bought a basic toolbox and it doesn't fit shit.
Yep. Usually once you start building stuff and well, needing the like requiring the use of tools, you start
Yeah.
piling up the tools. I guess that's why people have storage
Yeah,
up
and
here.
that's why you also have parts left over sometimes. Like I have a folding stock for a rifle just laying in my closet as well. I have like I don't know, different clips for different holster shapes that go onto like some are like molly retention or just, you know, spare concealment pieces that I don't use on my holsters anymore.
But then you get to that awesome place in life where you do need to use them,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it feels nice.
you feel ready. That's true. That's true. You feel prepared for whatever has occurred. So, I mean, all the more reason to eventually organize my storage correctly.
Oh, yeah. I've been wanting to declutter my room, and I don't know. I feel like I have to. What is it like? I don't know if it's the Swedish that do it. There was a specific country that did it where they clean. It's called like death cleaning,
Ah, yeah.
just to make sure that if you die, you're not leaving a burden for those who clean up after you.
That's kind
And
of an odd logic.
yeah, but I guess there's less to clean. But more of I
Hmm.
feel like there's so much stuff that I have that I need to declutter
Hmm.
and wipe my brain with. Well, wipe my brain of.
If it helps, if it helps, I'm really struggling with my desk right now because I have a respectable sized desk, and I've managed to occupy almost all of it so that there's no room to really do anything at this desk except for drink tea and work at my computer.
Hmm.
So when I needed to look for a solution to have a calligraphy desk, I had to buy a separate folding desk that I just set on the floor. So it sits like a full, I don't know, maybe a full 2 feet below like the surface of my primary desk. And like if I need my PC, I'll move it to the floor desk and then do whatever I need to do on the floor desk while sitting on the floor because it's allegedly better than just sitting, you know, the way you would usually do in a in a computer chair. And then I'm forced to pack it up and move the folding desk out of the way.
Is that comfortable, like sitting on the floor?
Absolutely not. It is torturous, but allegedly good for you because it offsets mm, the imbalance, the muscular imbalances that you induce by being sedentary in the European way, like the loss of tone in your abdominals, the hypertone in your erector spinae. So that usually occurs when you're sitting upright, the way we're taught to sit in school,
Mm.
and that apparently that induces what's referred to what is the anterior pelvic tilt, I think is the term that's used for that, where uh, where like you basically your hips are rotated, so turning your ass up more and like protruding your stomach forward too much.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and apparently sitting on the floor does the opposite. It forces your abdomen to be constantly stressed and it stretches your back in such a way that basically just does the opposite.
Hmm. Never thought to try that out.
Well, try
Maybe
sitting
that
on the
would
floor
help.
cross-legged or in Seiza and see how that works.
It's probably a lot more comfortable. You
It's,
probably get used to it.
you get used to it. I used to do a lot of Seiza. I used to do a lot of in-person tea ceremony training.
Hmm.
And like all of Japanese tea ceremony is sitting in seiza. You have to just get numb to the process. You have to be able to sit in seiza for stretches of like 20 to 40 minutes at a time.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that is a long time.
Yeah. The trick isn't to not go numb, it's to graciously navigate having to stand up from your legs having went numb, if that makes
Huh?
any sense.
No.
So, as if you're sitting in seiza properly,
Hmm.
your legs will just they will go numb from lack of circulation, usually from the knees down.
Okay.
And yeah, and in the process of tea ceremony, usually the process is like if you're the one hosting it, You bring in your utensils in two helpings. So you bring in the actual teacup and the container that contains the actual tea. It's going to vary depending on the exact etiquette you're demonstrating. And then you bring in the slush water basin, and then you sit down to do the actual ceremony. And from that point onward, you are seated in Seiza for approximately 20 minutes at a time because you're serving the tea for anywhere from 1 to 5 guests at the same time. And your legs will go numb eventually. And at the end of the process, you have to stand up from your seat, and you need to do so
Oh, I see what you mean.
graciously. Yeah, you
So
need
by the
you
end of it, you have your like your legs are numb
they're
and your
numb and you can't stand and they
yeah
hurt. So you need to grit your teeth. You need to stand up and maintain balance with legs that are half that aren't
half asleep.
entirely they're half asleep. They're not entirely there. And then you need to keep a straight face while also carrying like a bowl full of water that you're supposed to also not spill on the expensive tatami floor because it's going to mold if even like a drop of water makes it onto it.
Damn. So you've been doing that?
I've been doing that for something like 10 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I didn't have in-person instruction as much recently because after I've moved to the US, or rather I repatriated back to the US. So I've not had direct contact with my instructor. So I only sporadically actually practice in person, only when I go to Japan. But there was a period of time where like I think I had my classes, I'm trying to remember, either once a week or twice a week. I'm blanking on that now. And yeah, the class was basically me running through a specific tea ceremony etiquette. And that took somewhere around 2 hours to do in its entirety because you have to set up, you have to prepare, you have to clean the tea room, then you do the etiquette, then you take your instruction, you take like you cover some sort of new material, then you clean up. So of that, roughly 40-ish minutes was spent just sitting still in Seiza doing stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Huh. So you were in Japan for 10 years?
No, I wasn't in Japan for that. I was in Europe, but I was
Oh, whoa,
attached.
whoa.
I did that.
Okay.
I was still attached to the Japanese diaspora as I did that. And then sort of Europe became a less welcoming place for a variety of reasons. So my instructor, she moved back to Japan, and I moved back to the States.
Okay, I see now.
Yeah,
Oh, so you were traveling for a long time.
basically, yeah. I was exiled from the States for as a cruel and unusual punishment of experiencing the consequences of communism. So yeah, tea ceremony is rough. They reel you in by giving you treats and tea, and it's all good and well, but then you're committed and you're locked in, and then the angry Japanese old women start berating you and slapping your fingers with because you did something wrong.
Do you think you can do it without error now? Like
Oh, I can
you
do
got your
some
stuff
things.
together?
Well, I can do stuff reasonably well, so to speak. There's no such thing as perfecting anything. That's an oxymoron. You can always no wait, no, that's not what an oxymoron means. Um, but there's no such thing as perfecting an art to like an absolute complete polishedness. You can be the best at it of people currently alive, but that implies that you still also understand like places where you are deficient.
Yeah.
What I can do is I can competently execute a set of tea ceremony etiquettes referred to as temaya, which are like situationally and seasonally appropriate with a degree of competence that is appropriate to my certification level, which as of right now, I believe I'm certified all the way up to using Daisu. Daisu is an antiquated tea equipage that was brought over from Tan China to Japan by practicing Zen monks, and then they developed the rest of the tea ceremony etiquettes sort of as being simplified versions of that downstream.
I see. Huh. So you've really gotten into it.
Yeah, it's terminal weebery. I'm never recovering. I am completely beyond help.
It's too late. You're gonna be stuck this way forever.
Oh, it is definitely, yeah. This is there. It's just impossible to decouple. At the very least, on the sunken cost fallacy. I've been a very consistent and very dedicated weeb for damn quite a while now. I think I'm nearing 20 years now on the
Ooh.
totality of it.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest weeb, but I enjoy the usual like Japanese media,
Yeah.
fashion styles,
Oh.
like whatever makeup is trending.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, the whole the whole thing.
It's difficult for me to keep track of fashion trends because, well, not terribly interesting. And from the outside looking in, it all looks the same. I've passed through Harajuku a number of times, and it's just so samey for me. It's the miss the I, there's probably like nuance, and if you learn the history of it, if you go down the same rabbit holes the QB goes down to, you can probably tell what's actually happening. For me, it's completely opaque.
Oh, I see. And I
Yeah.
mean, for guys, there's a lot less. I don't know. There are a lot less option for guys than women, I'd say, in terms of how far you can go with it.
Hmm. I guess
Um,
so. I guess so.
yeah.
I haven't looked into it very deeply. Once I've discovered Nikozupon, which are like very oversized pants, that's it. That's where my search stopped.
Oh,
Oh,
the very baggy ones.
yeah. Because because I'm about as wide as I am tall, and a lot of that is thanks to being a big fan of the heavy back barbell squat. My I'm pretty sure that like my thighs are larger in circumference than my waist, and that
Oh,
makes
okay. That's not good for pants, but that's huge. Yeah.
yeah, clothes become a problem. Jeans are just out of the question for me forever. I've just given up. Levi 501s will just never fit me ever again. That ship has
Oh,
sailed. The
this
baggy
is so
Japanese
sad.
pants, however,
They
fit
fit.
just right. They're just right. They give me enough space to move around. I'm also very particular. I really like to dress around like having full range of movement. If I'm dressed in a way that doesn't allow me to throw a high roundhouse, I'm very displeased with that. I feel uncomfortable.
You feel constricted.
Exactly, yes. I need to have the comfort of being able to knee someone in the face just to function day to day.
You do a lot of kneeing.
No, I'm a very I'm usually very peaceable, but I like to have that option. I'd prefer to talk it out, but if someone insists, I could also curb stomp them.
No, so how come it's like your average kick versus like your punch?
What do you mean?
Like, why would you go for curb stomping rather than just going in with the punches?
Well, curb stomping is when you're actually stomping on someone's head against a
Oh,
hard
the
surface.
jaw.
That's 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 more of a final stroke, so to speak. You can open up with punches, but you need to get to the point where you can curb stomp. I like kicking because, well, as a side of that, kicking is fun. It's a very fun motor skill to master, for lack of a better word. And like the leg is significantly larger because force is what? It's speed times mass. And
Hmm.
legs, especially, like freak legs like mine, are very heavy. Therefore, Like I can produce a lot more force if I clip someone with my leg. And I don't have to reach as far. Like I can the ranges are different because my range for a punch is limited by my wingspan, which isn't that big. Uh, my legs, however, will reach significantly farther. They'll reach farther than the average punch, and most people have trouble just standing on their own 2 feet when they're untrained. They're even less ready for a foot to fly out and to reach their head.
Well, you don't really require the use of that on a day-to-day basis.
It depends on what your day to day looks like.
Okay, what's your day-to-day look like?
My day to day is going to work and then VTubing or going to the gym. And in at the gym, there are like training scenarios where I need to reach like head height with the leg.
Oh yeah, well that makes sense there.
Yeah.
I meant more of a walking to work or walking.
Yeah, that would be an outlier, at least in most first world countries.
Hopefully only an outlier.
Well, it's statistically like that. It's an outlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually one of the big reasons, for example, why a lot of combat sports have degenerated in the West, much to my chagrin. Like a lot of my time right now is a lot of my content rather is me screaming at YouTube videos of that are basically a good demonstration of the state of martial arts, especially in America.
Oh, they're dwindling. Uh,
Yeah,
getting into
basically.
martial arts. Right now I'd say it's for some reason it's becoming a lot less skillful,
It's
and
so
training is a lot. I don't know what's happening because
there's there's a very important bifurcation that's happens. Basically, American martial arts are now occupied by extremes. There's the extreme competence at the expense of injury and life perspectives,
hmm.
which is occupied by the orbit of MMA training. That's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that's Thai boxing, that's conventional boxing, kickboxing. So things that are fast to pick up, are provably effective. They're very good as foundations to build people up into MMA fighters, but usually it's only worth engaging in if you're actually going to be like a paid card fighter. And
Yeah.
then there's an understanding of the fact that A, your productive lifespan is extremely limited, your likelihood of success is not great. And if you stay in certain sports like boxing, you may be looking at just rapid deterioration of your mental state.
Oh
That
yeah.
yeah, that's why when someone asks me, "Oh, like is boxing a good striking discipline?" My answer usually is yes, if you don't expect to need an IQ above 90 for the rest of your life.
After brain injury.
Well, yeah, it's not even just one brain injury. The problem with boxing specifically, that for example is not found in Muay Thai as much or in kickboxing as much, is because you only have hands and your primary modus of interaction is fist to the head. And
Yeah.
even with the gloves, even with the headgear, it means that a gigantic and like a disproportionately large portion of your training consists of you receiving small shocks to the brain. And that is the worst thing that can happen because all of those are mini concussions. All of that is causing your brain to be physically damaged. It's causing your brain to rattle around inside of your head. Like 1,000 little shakes that you sustain throughout the course of just normal boxing curriculum, unless you're like your trainer's prized oiler who he doesn't let other people beat.
Hmm.
Over the course of your life, over the course of just normal boxing training, you're going to do more damage than would be sustained from being just knocked out cold once with a head kick.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's starting to. I mean, I've seen a lot of like the older fighters. They have problems with like Alzheimer's too.
Yeah,
That's a big risk, and
it's
I
not
I
even a
see
risk,
why.
it's a guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that there are. I won't go too much into it, but like specific like phenotypes of individuals that are a lot less likely to develop long-term illnesses, specifically like brain
Listen,
damage because
we
of it.
we 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 don't shy away from biological determinism on this channel. Maybe we can stop short of discussing whether or not there's a connection between race and IQ. But Floyd Mayweather actually has survived a boxing career fantastically well, but that's because he's a phenom. He is the exception that proves the rule because his career was made on head movement and
Hmm.
not being hit at all.
Yeah, and he's done a really good. Like
Yeah,
he's excellent,
and
I'd say.
he's all there. Like he's suffered like no damage whatsoever. And then you look at Mike Tyson, who can barely speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, boxing is rough. But on the other hand, like that's sort of one balance of people going very hard, people going ham, and like don't even get me started on the injury profile of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. On the other hand, you have the McDojos, the aggressive bullshido, the Americana karate and Taekwondo and Aikido, basically
Hmm.
things that just provably do not work because they've never employed effective training methods. They exist as like disciplines to congratulate and monetize mediocrity. Am I boring you that much?
No, no, I'm aware of how it is.
No, your sleeping blunt shape was turning on.
Oh, it's so that happens sometimes when like if I keep my face straight completely and I'm like
Ah.
not moving around, it assumes I fell asleep because all my blunt shape values are 0.
Ah, I it's interesting that you have that as like a middling. So wait, so is being asleep set to your neutral blend shape?
No, it tracks specific ones. I think I can add more that are likely to fail when I'm, for example, off screen or when
Uh-huh.
my tracking fails. But I think right now I have it to where it's tracking like specific mouth movements and eye movements.
Oh.
And if I don't move my like if I'm just staring
Mm-hmm.
at the wall or like staring at my screen and I'm not like super I'm not moving around that much, then it'll
Mm-hmm.
trigger it.
Interesting. That's the I guess that's sort of what comes with the territory of more advanced tracking because I just use bare bones webcam tracking and I
Oh,
never really set anything up for more advanced blend shapes, which I should probably do eventually.
it's not too hard, but it makes it's either like at the expense of you get away from the camera and then your model tracking goes off and your
Mm-hmm.
model is still kind of like jankily looking at the camera or at a
Mm.
weird angle. It's at that expense of being a little bit glitchy where it's tracking your other blend shapes closely, so it might make you go into that idle animation early or at times when not necessary.
Ah, I see. I see. I guess that's why people who have more elaborate setups, they'll use things like Stream Decks to run those.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see. I
Yeah,
see.
they use keybind. I mean, you I can keybind it, but sometimes I can't really tell when I'm gonna have to like step away from the camera.
Ah.
So it's easier to let it do its thing and then me just go off for a little bit.
Yeah, that does make sense. That does make sense. I am contemplating getting a Stream Deck eventually, mostly to work some of my active blend shapes because I have same face. Like I have IRL I have a severe case of IRL extreme resting bitch face. So my face doesn't really move a lot at all. Like I've had the 52 blend shapes made and I'm like, okay, this is barely different. And
You
if I proactively contort my face, they start registering. But that's just not a normal way for me to do things.
I know you
So
can up them up a little bit in Vignon, like set graphs for them. So maybe to open up the mouth a little bit or make the
I,
jaw
I can
open.
I've went into Unity, and I like configuring my things like directly at the source, so it's hard
Hmm.
coded into the model.
That way you don't have
And
to adjust.
exactly, yeah, but unfortunately, no, I just have brick face. That's it. It's a known fact. I don't emote a lot at all,
Oh no.
and yeah, and it's made even worse because I wear a beard, and it's not helping.
Yeah, tracking with the beards, I've heard is a huge issue.
I have two tracking. Oh, that's three tracking debuffs now. Resting bitch face, the beard, and the prescription glasses. I am completely cooked.
Oh no. Yeah, that's not good.
I never had a chance. It was over before it started.
Prescription glasses. Usually, I've noticed that, at least, I don't know, mine have anti-glare on the lenses, so whenever I wear them, they don't really cause an issue. But I have seen people having a lot of issues because
Mm.
they wear glasses, so my condolences.
I'll figure it out eventually. It's really it's a problem. It's an issue of me. First of all, yes, having a stream deck for like when I wants to have like the very specific like played up the Shy Lily school of VTubing, so to speak, when I want to like double down on the ventriloquist dummy
Oh yeah.
approach, which is good. It's good to do that as a streamer, especially if you're like farming clips and whatnot, which I've started doing more of. But also I'll need to go into Unity and like configure the correct even just combinations of the new 51 52 blend shapes in all of the blend shapes that are active on me so that it looks a little bit more lively and more organic, because the way I'm saying it, I'm not throwing shade at the artist who did my blend shapes. Like, she did a good job. I don't know, do you know Dolly Hitsujida?
No, I haven't
She's a
checked them out.
she's a 3D artist. So I basically commissioned her to just make the 52 blend shapes on an existing model, and she did a great job. Like, when they're actually active, when they're registering, they're great. Problem is resting bitch face.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't track. Well, it tracks your movement, but because you don't
Yeah,
really move a lot, then
yeah. The
you're
brows
stuck.
move a lot because the brows is the only piece of my face that does move around. If that's
No,
it. I am all brows.
all brows, no eyes,
Yeah.
no mouth.
Moogie pilled.
Yeah, for mine, I don't know. Somebody had made. I'm using a specific head asset that
Hmm.
is very popular, and so somebody had made an AR kit version of it.
Ah.
And so I got that one. I set it up, and then did the retexturing and everything, and adjusted it. But that took like a good 2 weeks, just because I was being super picky about how I wanted everything to look, and there was a lot of customization that they had with the base, with all the
Ah.
blend shapes that they had for it. So
I see. So
that's how
so
I ended up getting mine.
how did you like how did you end up making your model? Because I assume your model, like in its totality, is like self-made by you.
No,
No?
so my original model, which I made through Vroid, just character concept.
Uh-huh.
That was made fully by me. My hair is made by me, and then
Mm.
I made it in Vroid because that's the easiest way of making hair in Blender is
Mm.
such a pain in the ass compared to making it in Vroid. So making for example, making the hair and the body base in Vroid is probably one of the easiest things, and that's what
Mm.
I had for my first model. For
Mm.
this one, I kind of did what you did and had different assets combined to make a specific, to make it look that way.
Mm.
Which I found was better, but I did have to go through the whole process of Blender, s- you know, maybe combining armatures, adjusting
Mm.
weight painting, sometimes rigging because you find something or you make something like bows or whatever you have to add, and you have to rig it to make sure that it moves correctly or whatever.
Mm.
So that's how I made mine. Yeah. And then the retexturing, I had retexturing for the body, the face, and leg warbers that I just went in and worked on that.
Nice. That's extensive work. Your model is well put together. Like it has a concise theme to it. Like it's consistent.
Yeah. I eventually would do want to make some stuff from like complete scratch, well, other than like just Blender only. And I've been learning, but it's so much more difficult. Like there's a difference between doing sculpting in Blender to try to get the shape of that stuff, but then you have to do retopology. And then that's where you have to, you know, mess with vertices and edges and all the fucking planes and shit. And that's the very difficult part. I'd say that I actually have a better time weight painting and rigging and doing all the physics stuff than making like the actual frame of the assets. It's very difficult.
I agree with that. It's the same for me. Like I tried sculpting some things. I had to make some shapes from scratch. Like I had to make my belt. I think I've made it out of circles, and then I sort of when it was all shaped together and like bent the correct way, then I made a mesh out of it. But I did a little bit of sculpting for like bits and like small elements on my plate carrier. For example, I have a little dangling, a little sutra amulet. So that I had to like put together and sort of do a little bit of sculpting on it. And that was just horrific to do. I much rather weight paint, because as much as people dog on weight painting, there is still some kind of what easily understood logic to it. Like once you figure out what the colors mean and how the vertices are supposed to connect to specific bones, it makes internal sense, and from that point onward, if something isn't working correctly, you fucked up. And
Yeah.
sculpting is just so fucking opaque. It's just a learned science, or they're a learned skill.
Yeah, and I think, like I said before, with the retopology, because you have to make sure that everything, like, fuck, I'm forgetting the fucking word for it, but you have to make sure that the mesh and everything is constructed correctly in case you want to add rigging to it. You know, like mouth, like constructing a mouth on models
Yeah.
is always my biggest struggle because there's so much. There's just so much that goes into it, and I mean, you can reference other work as much as possible, but if you don't understand why it's done that way, and don't understand that, I don't know how I would do it without referencing something, because it's just how do I know that it's supposed to look like that in order to accurately, open the mouth during tracking.
Yeah, that's why I didn't even attempt to make shape keys, because like I could like most of the work that I did on the model is basically just me cargo culting it off of instructionals and videos that just granularly explain or at least show stuff that they do, which this sort of became a new pet peeve of mine. I would watch an instructional and someone has like very light commentary over what they're doing, and they're doing shit at like 10 strokes a second.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, I have to slow down the video and watch their actual keystrokes to find out.
0.5.
Yeah, 0.25, just to find out what the fuck did you even do? Why is that now a mesh? How do you bend a circle? What the fuck is even going on here? How do you edit the data of the vertices that way? Like they'll just gloss over fundamental important skills of even using Blender while they're explaining something.
And it's supposed to be a tutorial, like
Yeah.
extrude this vertice and then do this fucking like, I don't know what it's called, but it's like where you use kind of like it's like a graph to bend the vertices in a specific direction.
Oh, I haven't even
S-
touched that.
so like if usually when you model faces, because
Hmm.
that's what I've been doing. I feel like the body is a little bit easier than the
Yeah.
faces, but when you model the faces, you start by outlining the shape with
Uh-huh.
like the the little circles, the edges,
Uh-huh.
and you do that you by doing it flat, so just the outline of the shape of the face, and then you're supposed to turn it, and you were supposed to do the side profile view.
Eh.
And I've seen a lot of artists, they use like this like weird bending, almost like graph thing to bend the
Hmm.
vertices so that it makes the shape of the forehead to the nose.
And you know what? Another thing is, some of them will use some obscure plugin, which is like
Oh no, that's
the
even
which is
worse.
yeah. Some of them are broken. They no longer work with Blender 4.0. Some of them are like paid professional tools where I need to pay a $200 fee for the Blender plugin. I've seen tutorials that work off of that. Like someone will use a cloth simulation plugin. Like, oh, how to make cloth in Blender. Step one, pay $200 for a Blender plugin to simulate physics. Gee, thanks.
Or even with the free plugins, it's like find this plugin, this version of this plugin that works with this specific version of Blender
Yeah.
that is hosted on some random fucking like media fire link and use that.
Like
Um,
you're downloading this obscure tool that's no longer supported, just waiting for the FBI to kick your door down.
yeah, it's rough with it.
I had that when I was trying to rig up the desk pet, the the middle ground between taking the babby pill and still having some dignity.
Oh yeah.
Um, so the models, I got them from an archive. There's a guy who rips them from Action Taimanin, which is a gacha game, because well, notoriously gacha games and fighting games have the best female character designs.
Hmm.
So, and he, for some, I don't know why, maybe it has to do with the asset ripper that he's using, or I don't know why, but he extracts them and saves them and publishes them in a format called ESP, which is a four or EXP, I think, some extremely niche 3D model format.
Hmm.
And that's a format that was made for a software that doesn't even exist anymore. And the plugin that was made to allow Blender to read those models is also no longer it's not supported for the last like 3 years, so it only exists for Blender 3.0. So when I actually tried rigging one of the models that I downloaded, and I downloaded almost the entire archive, I still think I have like 20 more sets left. But I had to reinstall 3.0 Blender, install the plugin, upload the models through the plugin, uh, move some like do the baseline rigging, export it as a Blender file, and then open that Blender file in the 4.0 and then just continue working as normal.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, that's a whole setup.
Yeah. Somewhat arcane, but you know it works at the very least. Like once you get it out of that arcane format, it starts actually working. It's something like Lana or something like that. I think it was the software that was originally made for that format.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I had to do specifically with the head for this because it was put in a specific format and had to be like converting to VRM, right?
Uh-huh.
So I had to find a way to convert just like regular FBX to VRM without the body because I wanted to test the head rigging
The head
first.
movement. Yeah.
And there was something, I don't remember exactly what it was because it was like a whole fever dream process, but there was this one thing where it would look super incredibly janky in Blender after I had it. I don't think it even was in FBX format. It was in some other format. So I had to go
Uh-huh.
from that format to FBX, import it into Blender. Finally in Blender, convert it to a VRM and make sure all the blend shapes were appropriate and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that entire process was this whole fever dream, and it would look super janky when I had it in Blender. and I just had a hope that it would fix itself after the conversion to VRM. Somehow, I don't know what I did because I was messing around with it for like a day and a half, but I was able to get it to stop looking janky, and then everything was perfectly fine from there on.
Nice, nice. Yeah, sometimes you just encounter that the freak overlay of software formats. You sort of stumble through a solution, and because it only occurred once, you don't memorize the steps that you took. It just, you sort of happened upon the Todd Howard method of it just works.
Yeah, so that's why, I mean, I keep the best version of my model as I'm working on it.
Hmm.
And then that's like the holy grail. Like, I can't lose a file or I'm gonna have to, like, I never want to do that again.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I try to like double and triple archive my shit. I have all of my versions ever, like all of the more or less finalized versions that were made to exist at a time. I have all of those archived. So
Yeah, it's
whenever I need
best
to
to.
go back to a point where I supposedly fucked something up, I can always pull up that particular chronological model, and it's going to have like the exact set of variables that was set in place up to that time, and if I need to reconstruct things that took place after that, I'm able to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, that is the best way of working with it because with 3D models, everything breaks out some point.
Yeah. Who would have thought version management is important? Maybe someday I'll also start documenting.
Documenting how,
At the very least, writing down a change log.
oh, for each change you do for your model,
Yeah.
that would
Well,
probably be a good idea, yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Because, well, for example, right now I'm not managing the materials on this one correctly. The way this model is exported is it relies on Unity packages from two different VRM models.
Oh, I see. So you,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's depending on other folders.
Yeah. Well, when it's packaged as a VRM file, it's not that really much of an issue. I can technically just re-upload it into if I load the exact VRM file into
Hmm.
Unity,
Yeah.
it's going to come with the correct materials. But also the master that I keep in the Unity file that I'm fidgeting with, that one is calling back through different sets of Unity assets.
Yeah, that's my issue right now where I do have like a stable version that compiled together as a VRM
Hmm.
wouldn't need to rely on the other ones, but within the Unity project that I have, there are like other assets that are like this model has a specific material that I set up the shader in a specific way, and it's like a model from like over a year ago, and I've just
Yeah.
been reusing that same material because it looks
Yeah.
good, and there's no need to like but it's in that same Unity project. So if I were to like delete it,
Oof.
then the one in the Unity project would just not have it. But I'd still have my VRM with it. I just that's the one I modify those, and then the VRMs are like the final versions that can be re-imported,
I
but
I should probably just save like every time I move on to a new stable version of the VRM, I should probably just save that on a flash drive that's just under lock and key in a strong box.
oh god. And I don't know about you, but I'm constantly paranoid that one of my hard drives will shit themselves, and then because I have them on different hard drives just in case, like the
Yeah,
backups, but
same,
what if
same,
they all
same.
fail?
Ooh, what would be a scenario to have multiple hard drives fail? Would an EMP knock out both hard drives? Question mark.
Could be an EMP. I mean, I don't if you have like some sort of interference that's that bad with any technology,
It's probably gonna cook everything.
yeah, like a
I
fucking
should
solar flare.
solar flare. Well, damn. Okay, I need to go and buy a Faraday cage real quick.
I don't know if they work that effectively either
Faraday
because
cages?
I've looked at them, but I'm not like 100% sure.
Best way to test is put your phone inside of it and see if it kills the signal.
I've never had one. I've never like I haven't tested or messed around with one.
Yeah,
But I do
that's the way
wonder.
to test it. If you put your phone inside of the Faraday cage and it just goes dead, like 0 bars completely, that's it. It means that the Faraday cage is working. It means that no EMF is able to pierce it.
Oh, huh.
The biohacking space was preoccupied with sensitivity to PMF,
Hmm.
and because of that there's like a slew of products that's built specifically for blocking EMF. There are clothing sets for people to put on themselves to block like the excess radiation for when they're flying on a plane.
I've been thinking about that for a while. Like, I don't know. I remember it was a couple years back. I did some research and there was like a I don't know if it's still consistent, but always a 12% chance of potential solar flare or some like solar storm that could wipe out electronics. So I've been thinking like maybe that's a good investment, but it's only
it,
like 12,
it
so
I mean, it depends on what you're trying to preserve inside of that Faraday cage. Like, realistically, like if the bulk of technology on Earth is just suddenly wiped by a solar flare, I don't think that a VTuber model is going to be immediately usable anyway, even if you've managed to preserve it inside of the Faraday cage.
you have a good point.
Yeah, like short band radios, that's kind of a higher priority there. Satellite phones, maybe.
At that point I don't think those would be usable either.
Yeah, yeah, depending on what kind of countermeasures are present even on satellites that are supposed to support the communication network for those. So I guess you need to sort of account for your exact use case. What eventuality are you preparing for? I have that approach for example, for when I'm designing the gun builds that I'm planning to do. Like I have this what I refer to as like a supply chain breakdown rifle.
Hmm.
I don't call it shit hits the fan because shit hits the fan is like a catch-all term, and it's like very wide because there are degrees of shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
There's supply chain disruption, meaning like my local Target can run out of toilet paper and like the roads are frozen and I can't get food in easily, which is a real thing that actually can happen with a high probability.
Hmm.
And then there's like societal breakdown, and those are very different scenarios to prepare for.
Yeah, like for example, you're running your own, like this is I guess like down the line of the whole thing. You're running your own like self-sufficient setup and then you're dealing with people that want to take part of your like supply.
Part of your setup, yes.
I mean, it's very realistic because we did have like where I am, I won't, obviously say where, but did have like a huge landlock issue for a long time.
Ah,
And the supply we there was no access to like any supplies from anything.
mm-hmm.
Like the supplies would last as long as they could, and then after that it was just like
Yeah.
literally everybody was just like, oh well, like what the fuck are we supposed to do about that?
Yeah, yeah. And that's just a supply chain breakdown. That's not even like the breakdown of society of there no longer being centralized law and order. That's like in the game theory still dictates that people are still interested in cohabitating peaceably under those circumstances.
Hmm.
So, and even then, like most people are not prepared for that. Like that happened in Texas a couple of winters in a row.
Oh yeah, where the power grid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, there's a variety of things that go wrong. Again, that's not a knock on Texas. It's kind of what people are failing to understand. It's to be expected if you only see a proper winter once every 50 years,
Hmm.
but the 100-degree weather in summer is every year. It's kind of normal that your infrastructure is built to withstand one and not the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why all of the snow jokes are kind of stupid. Like, oh my, like Texas is so tough they shut down over like some ice and snow. First of all, we live by the Gulf of America. We have very high humidity. Our cold is different and our fucking ice is different. on top of the fact that we are, as a state, are built to survive weather that's considered like a natural disaster in Europe. For us, it's just summer.
It takes a lot of money and a lot of resources to prepare a if Texas is a pretty huge state.
Yeah.
To prepare like an entire state and population for every possible natural disaster. I mean, Texas can get hit by a fucking hurricane and
And it's fine.
yeah, and it's fine. I guess depending. But
Like
then
as long as you're like not in the actual like tornado lane, as long as your house just doesn't get demolished by the tornado, and even in that case, they have like people who live in an area that's affected by tornadoes, they have fail safes for that. They have reinforced structures, they have shelters that are built like on lower ground to avoid that.
yeah, and there are countermeasures for that, but not everybody's gonna have a countermeasure for every like critical winter.
Yeah. Well, because again, winter only happens here like once every half a century. What's the point of like reorganizing your entire thing? Especially like we had two cold winters, and on the second time around, we figured out how to deal with that. For instance, like our water pipes freeze over because they're um they're made of plastic and they're not dug in very deep
Mm.
for residential areas. When the big freeze happened the first time, people were not prepared and their pipes burst, and a lot of people were without water because of that. Next time we figured out, oh yeah, when it comes to freezing temperatures, you need to keep water flowing through the pipes. So you just drip your faucets throughout the house and keep your cabinets open so that there's a circulation of, first of all, warm air around the pipes and water inside the
Flowing
pipes.
water, yeah.
Yeah, and what do you know? We had a winter and no pipes are bursting because we figured it out. We've adapted. We now have this know-how to this particular situation.
Yeah, and for example, where I live, like we like everybody here is very accustomed to the whole like it's been figured out like have specific protocols so that the pipes don't freeze.
Yeah.
You have to do like specific things to prepare for it, but then you're good. But I don't
Yeah.
expect other states that don't ever deal with that to
Yeah.
have, you know, all it already ironed out.
Yeah, there's no reason for Florida to do that. Just because they're so close to the equator that that's just not a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's why whenever people are like, well, they don't like have proper infrastructure, it's like there's a reason why people don't expect or
It's
like, anticipate super emergency situations.
it's not even that it's not proper infrastructure. It's infrastructure that is built to endure a set of environmental factors that are just very different.
Yeah.
That's again, that's it, like it's 100 degrees in Texas every summer. It happens every year. The bulk of the summer is like anywhere between 90 and 110. And our infrastructure is built to run in those conditions. And that those are difficult conditions to run in because, for example, it means that our grid needs to handle having ACs run all of the time. Meanwhile, fucking California has frequent brownouts, and they need to ask people to not charge their electric cars,
Yeah.
even though they don't get heat as extreme as we do.
God. I feel like living living in Texas during the summer would be hell.
I'm
Uh,
adapted, but then again, like, natural heat resistances, that's to be expected.
I don't think I could get used to it. I mean, where I am, temperatures have slowly been going up every summer, and it's just I hate the feeling of like
Mm.
that sticky feeling
Ah.
when it's super humid and hot at the same time, and it's just like, oh, disgusting.
So I can't do anything about the feeling, but apparently heat tolerance is like a trained quality.
Oh, really? What the hell?
Yeah, apparently the physiological reactions to it are very similar between heat resistance and spice resistance, and you can build up both through gradual exposure.
Hmm.
So if you eat more, how are you with spicy food?
I'd say I don't like I consume it every now and then. I'm not a super big fan of it. Like I don't have to have spicy food in every aspect of my diet. My temperament with it is
What's spicy
Um,
for you? Like, are we talking like Korean spicy, or are we talking like white woman spicy?
probably I don't know. Like, I ate a lot of Mexican food, so it's like on that level. I think I don't
Mm.
know which if Koreans have spicier food
Koreans have
than.
way spicier food. Like theirs is just inhumanely spicy. I can't finish a spicy Korean ramen.
Oh, I've been recommended a specific brand of it, but uh, was it you who recommended a specific brand?
No, no, no. I don't remember the Korean brands.
There's one with this little man on it. Um, and apparently those are super spicy. I don't remember what they're called, but I've been wanting to try those.
I know one with the chicken, where the chicken is like breathing flames out.
It's a warning.
I know that one. Because I have a Korean store where I buy groceries occasionally, and so they have like a full stock of the original good shit. And I
Mm.
tried that once, and I'm gonna say no, thank you, because it's just physically painful to eat.
Yeah, does that not like damage your
It does.
intestines?
Well, intestines, no, it does damage the lining of your tongue. I
Oh,
once
really?
I once well, not permanently. Well, it depends on how badly you do it. I guess you can permanently damage it as well. But I once had um like a challenger level spicy wings,
Mm.
and I could not even I could barely taste anything. Like I went to drink tea the same day, and me being a tea tester as a hobby, like my palate is fairly developed. I'm fairly sensitive to what I'm drinking,
Hmm.
and it all felt just like warm water. I just had absolutely no tasting sensation for the
Oh,
next 24 hours.
Jesus, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, again, fortunately, it faded after 24 hours. The lining of the tongue is still very good at regenerating because it's not really complex tissue. But that was that, yeah.
With the issue, I'm good with spicy food, but it gets to a point where you're trading off enjoying the food and actually being able to taste the flavor of the food
Yeah.
with just tasting like hot water.
Just tasting pain, just pure concentrated suffering. I don't get that. There's people claim there's like a hard ass aspect attached to it, and then like there I guess there's a class of people who just enjoys being a hard ass while just, tasting the devil's dandruff. I prefer to taste and eat the food. Thank you very much.
And enjoy it. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have to like make it a CBT competition for ingesting food.
Imagine the cross contamination. Oof, the horror stories. But yeah, apparently if you expose yourself, if you increase exposure to slightly spicier foods and if it's more frequent, it trains your body to deal with heat and vice versa. So like if someone is struggling with spicy foods, hypothetically they can add some sauna exposure on the regular, and that'll help them with spicy foods. Or if you struggle with heat, you can do both, like mild sauna exposures and eat a little bit
Hmm.
more spicy foods, and gradually you'll be able to tolerate heat a little bit better. I was exposed to extremely hot saunas as a child.
Oh,
Uh,
so you're good to go.
I am good to go. While the cruel irony of that is, I have absolutely zero resistance to the sun. I burn instantly. Like I am so fair skinned that even while being relatively fat off of a massing phase, I still have visible veins like all over my body, and they're like the bright blue arteria rather than the veins,
Oh,
because
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, I barely produce melanin. I barely tan. I just burn to a crisp whenever I'm exposed to the sun without any sunblock.
So do you just constantly, I mean, you either avoid being out or
I just bathe in sunscreen and then go about like doing whatever I'm doing. I like being outside. It's just that the outside doesn't like me. So I'll train in the summer. I'll train outside. I'll do that at like peak sunlight hours because I like the heat. Like it's enjoyable. It's adding quality to my training. But I need to like lather myself in thick SPF 30 in order to survive the encounter, and then I'll still have like a very mild sunburn by the time I'm back.
Oh, that's a bummer.
It's whatever. It's fine.
I don't have an issue with burning, but I do have an issue with like what's it called? Um, there's a specific word for it, and it's not cementing in my head, but my body can't like it has a hard time adapting to like temperatures. It's very sensitive to it. So
Ah,
I get very cold super easily, and I get very hot super easily.
thermoregulation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thermal regulation. I'm
Hmm.
very bad with it.
Hmm.
So during the winter, I usually am like shivering and sitting here, even with the heat on. And during the summer, I'm just constantly sweating.
Damn. I guess yeah. I
There's,
guess you're made for like northern Florida, where it's just a consistent 70 degrees throughout the year.
yeah, that'd be nice. Consistent temperature.
I've experimented with cold exposure, with like deliberate cold exposure a little bit. I still have setting up a cold plunge on my itinerary.
Oh,
I'll eventually do that. I got really into it when I was visiting my dad because he's set up an actual ice bath for himself. Or rather, he set up a cold plunge for himself. He repurposed an old freezer.
mm-hmm,
He put insulation on it just to make sure that it doesn't leak, that it holds water.
mm-hmm.
Covered the interior with like sheets of metal so that it creates an enclosed, basically like body of water. And he cools it to, I forget how low it gets. I think he cools it to like 5 degrees centigrade, I think. What's that in Fahrenheit? He makes it unpleasantly low. Let's see. 8.
Oh yeah, I'm guessing since you were in Europe for so long, you're good dealing
Uh,
with
I'm
Kelvin.
I'm no, no one deals with Kelvin. Celsius.
Celsius,
40
sorry.
41
My
degree.
C's and my K's. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. So yeah, so he cools it to 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Longest I've managed to stay in was like 3 minutes, and it was 3 minutes of pure hell. But having done the ice bath for almost every day for a week, I felt so much better. Be-
Really? What?
yes. So dad lives in Europe, and I was visiting him off of like a long business trip through Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So transatlantic flight, I come in, I feel absolutely miserable the entire time. I'm badly jet lagged. I have to work. I push through it. Like the magic of European food does not heal me for some reason. I don't know why, but like it's pure suffering for like a full week and a half. And I sort of start putting myself back together gradually, and by that time I reach my dad, and I have this week of just basically doing some light remote work, catching up on shit, and I have a reasonable amount of time to myself. So I just make use of the gym that he has in his basement. He has a sauna set up, and he has a cold plunge set up. He's been very hard on the biohacking grind before biohacking was even a term. He was cultivating those fat golden cores since before I was born.
Oh,
Uh,
I see what you
yeah,
mean.
yeah. Because of that, he has like the whole setup, all of the accoutrements. And I had like this week of experimenting with it. What would happen if I go to bed at 10 p.m.? What happens if I like get up at 6 a.m., go knock out a workout, and then just like I think the cycle I did was throw myself into the cold plunge like first thing in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
get out of the cold plunge, do a kettlebell circuit, off of the kettlebell circuit, I go directly into the sauna. I sweat through and then I go about my day. And like I felt very good by the end of the week. And then I had my flight and I was fully expecting that I'm going to like go through another flight. Like it's a red-eye flight, it's a transatlantic flight. I'm going to be jet lagged out of my mind and I'm going to be miserable. And it just didn't happen, which I attribute to the sauna and the cold plunge. I think that doing that for a week just sort of future proofed me enough to survive the transatlantic flight to not just come apart at the seams.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never been like I've never wanted to do cold plunges. Ah, I'd be miserable,
I don't think anyone wants to do them.
but I guess I don't know. I've seen a lot of information about like the benefits of cold plunges, you know,
Yeah.
helps with circulation,
Mm.
um like your muscle oxygenation question mark.
Mm. If I recall my literature correctly, so in the context of hypertrophy, which means like trying to deliberately put on muscle,
Hmm.
cold plunges are actually bad because hypertrophy occurs through a cascade of processes which include targeted inflammation. You disrupt the muscle through exercise, you damage the tissue becomes inflamed. The inflammation is a signaling mechanism for the body to shuffle more nutrients toward the affected tissue, and therefore hypertrophy. And cold plunges, one of the effects and why they're lauded so much by biohackers is because they reduce or completely remove inflammation, meaning that you don't have the growth signaling.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So why is it promoted so much for, I guess, either sports or, fighting and stuff?
Well, because not all sports require hypertrophy all of the time. A lot of sports that, for example, if cold plunges are very good for recovering faster if you're doing basically anything that's not building muscle tissue. For example, if I'm doing combatives work, it's more important for me to do my neurological conditioning, to develop skills, build my reduce my reaction times, like do my drilling while minimizing my soft tissue damage and my inflammation. So I need to recover fast, and building muscle isn't the objective. In that use
I
case,
see.
cold plunges are going to be useful. If I'm trying to do like bodybuilder prep and I'm trying to put on mass and I'm like doing bodybuilding volumes, but then I'm going into the cold plunge, I'm literally just spinning my wheels for nothing.
Okay, that makes sense now. I see.
Yeah.
So do you do bodybuilding then?
Mm, um, I go through cycles of different things. So I cross train striking, grappling, and I wouldn't say bodybuilding style strength training because I go through cycles of focusing on strength. As a byproduct of going for strength, I will put on muscle tissue, which is like similar to a massing phase for bodybuilding. And then I will go on a bodybuilding style cut to basically remove visible fat from my frame, but it's not exactly following bodybuilding protocols because bodybuilding isn't the objective.
Hmm.
Nor like I'm not ready to hop onto the blasting and cruising train, and realistically, in order to be a competitive bodybuilder, you have to be on gear at this point.
Yeah, you do. It's
Yeah.
I don't know if there's probably like at least for mainstream stuff, um, going all natural without anything.
And
There's probably something out there for it, but it's not.
there are men's physique competitions that claim to be natty, and they have testing, but the problem is uh, you can go off of gear and you can go several cycles clean. You can do your post course therapy, and you're technically off of the gear and you're no longer pissing hot. but you did put on all of that muscle while on gear, and that's not going away
Yeah.
unless you're like bedridden and you're suffering some kind of like actual sarcopenia. That all of that is going to stay, and for all intents and purposes, you are still an enhanced athlete. So then it sort of becomes that balancing act of, okay, we want to have like a tested bodybuilding league, but how do we control for people coming off of gear as
Which you
opposed to,
can't.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's very, very difficult. Like the trained eye can determine, but at that point it sort of becomes a hunch, and then you're going to flag people unfairly, and it becomes a whole fucking mess.
I think I do like appreciate different bodybuilders being more transparent about whether they use gear or not, because
Yeah.
it was so I don't know if the early years when bodybuilding was most popular. I mean, I guess it's coming back. It's always been a little, it's always been popular.
Yeah.
But now it's more like a mainstream, super mainstream thing. But in those early years, it was always super controversial.
Are you referring to more like the Arnold era or maybe directly after?
Arnold era.
Oh, okay, so Golden Age.
Yeah.
I think so. See, the thing is, that a lot of the stuff that the guys were doing in the Golden Age just wasn't. It wasn't considered steroids, and it also wasn't illegal. So, for example, D-ball was completely legal. So they would just take oral steroids. On top of that, they would also have prescriptions from doctors for like a TRT script, for example. Well, it wasn't called TRT. They would just have a testosterone script,
Mm-hmm.
which was also on paper legal. And people still do that. They'll get a prescription for like the top end of physiological range for testosterone, and then they'll just buy the difference from their dealer. So the only illegal part is like the overhead, the super physiological amounts they're getting. But if at any point they're like they need to travel on an airline, or like it's discovered that they just have the testosterone and like the injection needles and whatnot, they go like, here, I have a prescription for the testosterone. See, completely legal, all above board.
Yeah.
The reason a lot of people don't admit to being on gear, which I understand now, basically, if you pay attention, most of the people admitting to gear use are either people who live in jurisdictions where it's not illegal or not prosecutable or some kind of like at least legal gray area, or people whose gear use has run out the statute of limitations. Because, at least in America, buying and using steroids is still a federal felony.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like those natty or not kind of interrogations that people do during, for example, shows, or like people they'll go to the Arnolds and they'll be assholes to people like while holding a microphone at their face and pointing a camera at them. Like maybe don't ask the guy to admit to committing a federal felony where the statute of limitations still hasn't run out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I totally get that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of not admitting to committing crimes on the internet.
Plead your fifth.
You have a favorite set of bodybuilders? Who are your builder Oshis?
Um, I mean, I think everybody likes Arnold just because
True.
his legacy.
Imagine being in the same generation as Arnold, like under any other circumstance in any other sport, like you were supposed to be a phenom. Like people who have had just great genetic gifts for bodybuilding, like Frank Zane, and then life just gives you that middle finger in the form of this like perfect being specifically built to dominate the sport.
Which is crazy because,
Yeah.
usually there are other. Oh, I don't know if I should say that. No, no, I shouldn't say that. But
Listen, if you think it's completely off color, I can always fix it in post or at least bleep it out. So go ahead.
you have
That's why we record these as opposed to doing it as a live stream.
you have these guys who are supposed to be like physically and phenotypically they're supposed to reach their prime. Like they are biologically supposed to be peak because that's just
Yeah.
how their muscle mass is genetically. Like they're gonna be genetically predisposed to have
Yeah.
like a huge have huge mass and be very tall. And that's the
Yeah.
one thing with that I've seen with bodybuilding historically is that tall, very tall, like usually like you can't deny you have this tall dude who is huge. It's always going to persevere against
Yeah.
the smaller guys, even if they try, just because it's like a massive feat. But you have those people that are supposed to be like automatically biologically superior. Yeah,
Hmm.
And then you had Arnold going into that scene and
He just wrecks them.
matching it, like, and he did. I mean, I don't know if he had the easiest time with it because it still took a lot of work, but it was very impressive for its time.
Well, they all had great work ethics. Like none. That's the thing, that all of the people who participated in the Olympia, who are like remembered as the greats, they all had tremendous work ethics because they just wouldn't even enter the sport.
Yeah,
Arnold, there's a variance in like the deliberation of the amount of effort that they had to put in. For example, Ronnie Coleman, he just waltzed into he participated in bodybuilding because that just got him free access to Gold's Gym in Venice Beach. Because before that, like, he graduated high school while being an elite level power lifter.
hmm
So he just did bodybuilding on a whim, and then he's like, what, 5 times Mr. Olympia? He he was actually having a laugh at it, which is like, fucking ridiculous on the face of it. But he's also Ronnie Coleman, and like the fact that he was an elite level power lifter before that is a testament to just his innate work ethic that he then
yeah,
just directed into also doing powerlifting alongside the fact that he's like 7 foot tall.
which is insane too.
Yeah. Well, outside of that, by the way, the thing is, like, Frank Zane was almost able to offset the height difference because he was like 5'5", but he figured out training in a sense that made his physique still impressive. But it's also about the biggest variable that people actually struggle with. Like, the height isn't even the top three. The real deal breaker is the abdominal structure, because if you don't have like soap bar shaped abs, that's it. It's over for you. Like, it's like The Rock is like that. Just because of the way the ligaments sit on his abdomen, he's never going to have like the chiseled 8 pack. He
Yeah,
can go to like 3% body fat. It's just never going to happen because the ligaments and the musculature doesn't sit that way. And if it's just not there, that's it, you're fucked.
yeah, because someone else is just gonna come along and
Yeah.
yeah.
Because someone else is going to have the washboard abs, and you just can't diet that away because the muscles are just not there in that recognizable pattern. The other one is muscle bellies. It depends on like where a muscle inserts between specific joints, and like that's also a big variable, and that makes certain bodybuilders stronger in specific poses. Like, for example, um like Arnold didn't had a relatively short biceps, but he had like a very big peak in the biceps. So because of that, people who would have on paper should have had a better double biceps pose because their biceps is fuller. There is no gap between like the edge of the biceps and the elbow, but he beat them out because he had like this gigantic tall peak.
Yeah.
So lots of fascinating variables there. I would probably not call that a phenotype because a phenotype is a combination of characteristics of sexual selection, and it is confirmed that being in top bodybuilding physique is completely unattractive to most women and most respected by the guys.
Yeah, I will say that I appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
But it's never been something that I've fallen over because
Yeah, because the squeeze scrotum look is definitely an acquired taste.
it's the same, and I mean, it's the same thing for women bodybuilders, which I'm not as familiar with because I don't know, I'm not really as
Hmm.
interested. Where it gets to a point where even if they're building muscle and it's like a very impressive feat, it's not particularly attractive because I don't know. All I can think of when people get really big is that they look like chickens, like like a roasted oven chicken, and
Especially
it's
when they put the fucking spray
the
tan
bronzer.
on. You know what? There was female bodybuilding was in a very, very nasty place for the longest time, and until bikinis were like the bikini category was invented, because up until I'm going to say like the late 2010s, female bodybuilding basically existed as just male bodybuilding with slightly less testosterone.
Yeah,
And by slightly, I mean actually like slightly lower dosages, but they were still like slamming androgenic steroids, um, which it it has like not great effects for the female physique. Like the female body is not built to deal with
withstand
that.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So they would get like things like virilization. They'd like actually develop a male pattern V-shaped torso and whatnot. Not
Yeah,
great, not great. But
and
once
it's
bikini,
permanent usually when you're
oh,
going. Yeah,
that's not going away. Yeah, again, as mentioned previously, the steroid muscle is there to stay, and the virilization is also there to stay, such as the changes in the vocal cords, the hair loss, the body hair. It's almost as if the female body is not exactly built to tolerate male levels of testosterone. But bikini seems to be managing that significantly better. They seem to, first of all, androgen use is not as widespread there, just because they put a bigger emphasis on proportion rather than just building raw tissue. Bikini doesn't judge size overall as male bodybuilding does. So
hmm
because of that, there's not androgen abuse and there's only diuretic abuse. But it's at least they're still women shaped. Like the bikini competitors don't have to put themselves through whatever older generation of women bodybuilders had to.
yeah, and I think that's part of why I never really saw an appeal in it because
Yeah.
I don't know, it was like that for so long that I
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah, it was. It like that was like the horror show segment of like every bodybuilding magazine ever in the mid 2000s.
yeah.
Yeah, there were competitors who were sort of like, more on just the training side of it, people who usually just weren't competing in the IFBB side of things. So they were inoculated from it. But yeah, I can see the cooling effect that may produce. Are you following any of the current bodybuilding meta?
Um, Not really. Mostly it was growing up that I found an interest in that, but
Mm.
I have it's had its resurgence recently and I only know this because I saw the Sam Solik clips
Ah.
where he was trying to get in there. He's really trying super hard. He's not all the way there. I don't know if he's all the way there at like a standard level, but
I
he's trying.
think he's competed in a bodybuilding show recently, and he
He
did
did.
reasonably well.
He did
Yeah.
well, but I don't know if like it's not. I guess like a
Well, first of all, it's a process, and
like
he's a
super thing.
relatively young
Yeah.
guy. The novelty of Sulik, if I recall correctly, I don't follow him too closely, is that his cycle is built around SARMs as opposed to like conventional testosterone derivatives and like just conventional androgens. It's not
Yeah, that's
trend
what
D
I
ball
saw.
and test.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that's maybe part of why it's going a little bit slower for him.
I don't know. SARMs are allegedly as effective. I don't know. But and again, for his age, he's gigantic. He has a lot of contractile tissue. Like he is big enough to be very obviously be on gear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Question is how dialed in is his training? Because from what I've seen of his training, it's diligent, it's well intentioned, but not entirely dialed in. And from what I understand, he's doing his training is self managed as opposed to
Yeah.
having a coach lead you through it.
Yeah, and I think even now he's saying there's a couple things that he knows he can improve on.
Hmm.
Um, I don't remember if it was even eating more, because
That's
to
the thing.
maintain you have to fucking eat like crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but I know he's right now he's real aware of stuff that he could improve. I think
Hmm.
maybe with someone that with trainer he could go a lot further. But I think this is about his journey. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily care about becoming number one on on the basis of other people's terms and expectations. I think he just wants to
Well,
see how far he can go with it for himself.
here's the thing. I don't know how deep are you into anime lore, but one of the basic tenets of the male mindset states if one is born a man, at least once in his lifetime, he will dream of becoming the strongest man alive. So anyone who's pursuing any kind of physicality in a competitive setting, no, no, we're all going for that number one. The We can rationalize it all that we want. We can cope and seethe about not making it, but the voice there is always the voice in your head who tells you to kill the motherfucker on the higher step and take his place.
Yeah, I am aware
So
of that.
those demons are definitely there. It's whether or not he publicizes that and makes it his official mission statement.
Yeah. That's true. I think right now he's not really like pushing it as he wants to be number one. He's just
Yeah,
being like, this is my thing.
he's just vibing. Do you think that? I'm going to say content creators, like people around the bodybuilding space who build a social media presence around it, like Sam Sulek, are presenting an unrealistic body image to young boys.
I don't think so, honestly.
Based.
I mean, I've seen a lot of people say that bodybuilding within itself is a form of, well, is a form of body dysmorphia in the way that those people are promoting and have eating disorders
Okay,
because they are obsessed
true.
with the physique. I've seen that as an argument.
I'd
Um,
argue that that's accurate, actually. I'd agree with that point. Do you think that has any kind of social contagion to it, though?
I don't think so because I think people that are going into things like bodybuilding, and then I mean now there's a whole like resurgence of fitness and health, but I think that's normal. Like people are going to want to go into fitness if
Yeah.
there's a lot of fitness content. I don't think it's necessarily harmful as for bodybuilders to be promoting it because bodybuilding is like a profession. When you
Would you?
decide to go into it, you are full, and you know your shit and you know what goes into it. You know how much you have to eat, what your protein, like how closely you're going to be watching every single thing. I think people that go into that are fully aware of the risks and can make an informed decision.
Would you say that there's a like a spur of popularity of working out per se that's like an effect of it being more visible on social media?
I think so because from what I've seen personally, um, at least when I was in college, people were very interested in the whole like getting bigger, getting like this peak dream physique,
But
right?
isn't that just like male brain?
I also saw a resurgence of that in women, but
Ah, interesting.
it wasn't like something that was harmful. Like I don't know. I mean, I can see how obsessions can get to a harmful level,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the
that's
average person isn't looking to, like gear up. They're not
yeah,
looking to compete. They're just looking for a aesthetic physique that they want to
yeah.
have for the rest of their lives and the health benefits that come with being healthy and fit.
Yeah, I'm completely on the same page. I've seen someone attempt to like I'm not even going to say I'm not going to call that trying to make the point. I'm going to say they tried to torture that point out of facts that were just not there. Because bodybuilding is a good demonstration of like an extreme physique,
Hmm.
but I don't think it enforces anything that's actually unreachable. And if it motivates someone to go to the gym, as long as there's a healthy understanding of what is exactly the boundary between what you can do as like someone who's not a professional athlete, someone who doesn't make a living off of it, someone who has no valid reason to hop on gear, and what you're seeing in media, in magazines before that, in movies, as long as that boundary is very clearly understood, I think that's an overall positive. And I don't think the argument is there for the boundary not being in place because we currently have what, like 40% of the US population is obese medically. I'm pretty sure we don't have even like fractions of a percent of people who are on performance enhancing drugs of any kind, much less anabolic steroids.
Yeah, if it was an issue, it would show in the statistics.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. We'd have like lines at the ER with with fucking
Heart
uh,
disease.
with meatheads having, I don't know, fucking their ass rot off because they don't know how to cycle their injection sites correctly
Oh, yeah, that
or
too.
something like that. Yeah, like they'll do a subcutaneous injection of something that's supposed to be intramuscular or something like that.
I can't
Uh,
imagine it being like that. No.
Yeah, well, because it's just not like that. Because even getting to a point of abusing gear, are there idiots online who are like 17, 20 who hop on gear before even making an earnest effort? Yes. I think they are still the exception. I don't think that's like a massive problem. I
But I
think
don't think
most,
that yeah, that's not that doesn't happen on a giant scale. Like it doesn't
yeah,
happen on a massive scale where
yeah,
it's an issue that needs to be addressed by like
exactly.
even health agencies.
Well, no, 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 no. I don't think. I think most problems should be solved without governmental interference. But like societally, we should, for example, react to when like mental children hop on gear because they are doing known damage to themselves, but because they are mentally children, and that includes people who are 17, 19, 20, 25. Some could even argue that most men stay children up until the age of 60. But the point is that like those are outlier cases, and those outlier cases need to be corrected. But it's definitely not even nearly a societal problem. If anything, we have the opposite problem of not enough people even pursuing a baseline healthy lifestyle, like a baseline active lifestyle. I've recently stumbled upon this number, and like I had my guttural reaction was to argue with it, but then the math made sense because apparently less than a tenth of a percentage of the global population can bench press 225. And on the face of it, like it sounds ridiculous, especially for someone who's like spent a lot of time in the gym. And 225 is like a rite of passage for any kind of more or less advanced strength athlete. But then you're juxtaposed to just how vanishingly small that cohort actually is as opposed to the rest of the population. And you're like, oh, damn, yeah, that actually does make sense. The idea of less than a tenth of a percent of people globally can bench 225, like it's not really an idea that really occurred to me. I didn't realize that people who like take weightlifting seriously enough to even achieve what is like a reasonable adolescent uh PR for
Hmm.
men is so vanishingly small, because all of like the like adult size men in my life are were all able to bench press like significantly more than 225.
Oh wow.
Well, that's just what I was surrounded with. So it just never occurred to me that, like, oh, wait, that's just like my selection bias. That's just the people that I've been surrounded by growing up.
I've never looked at like I've never as a girl, I don't know what like the like how achievable that is. So I've never really I don't know, I think if a dude can lift, he
Eh,
probably can lift pretty heavily. So I don't know if that's something that is harder to achieve. I don't know if that's something that everyone can get to or if it's just something that
I may
oh,
be
you know.
misremembering this. I think I benched 225 with like reasonably passable technique when I was 15, I want to say. So like
Hmm.
relatively young, not even out of like high school. For women, 225 is a significant benchmark.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not it's not like freak strength, but you're definitely a serious strength athlete to bench 225. It depends on a lot of things. Like some gals are just beefier as like their base stats. Some of them are just some of them are more predisposed to the Valkyrie build. Um, because strength is a function of your overall body mass. It's easier to lift weights that are closer to your innate mass. That's
Yeah.
why generally like the benchmark for a more universal benchmark, and there's that granted there's no such thing as universality in training, but a reasonable benchmark for someone being in good shape is being able to bench press their own body weight
Hmm.
for like 10ish reps with good technique.
Yeah, I've heard about that. That's kind of the baseline,
Yeah. I'd say if you can do that, you're in a very good place.
which I don't know. I weigh like 115 maybe.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I never really got into weightlifting myself, but anything above that is probably going to give me a hard time if I mean, I can't imagine ever even going anywhere near 200 for anything, but
I mean, there's a question of why, right? Like benching in and of itself isn't the goal unless you're a strength competitor. Like it's a means to an end, I think, which is like the healthiest way to look at it. Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So like once you understand why you're doing that, then it sort of becomes a measurement of like the progress in your training. So I think if you decide that you want to do that, I think that's pretty achievable.
But I
But
don't
the
know if
question,
there's a need.
yeah, exactly. But to me, it sounds like you dabble in some kind of structured training, because you have like a very informed attitude about what goes into training, what goes into nutrition. Like you're keyed in significantly more than the average pedestrian.
For me, it's not like I wouldn't want to do um bodybuilding. I don't
Hmm.
like there's nothing in that for me, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing achievable in that for me. I think just I want to have a physique that I'm happy with,
Hmm.
that is, like aesthetically pleasing to me, and that I, I'll be fine with as I age. I know,
But
like, once you age to a certain point, it gets a little harder to maintain, but
I
that's like for me,
like it's
yeah.
progressively harder after you turn 25, but like the degrees vary. Um, but like what meaningfully differentiates what you do from, say, bodybuilding? Because like what you're describing is still achieved with bodybuilding methods,
Hmm.
short of like the deep end of the meta that only comes in for people who compete, such as androgen use and pharmaceutically assisted cutting.
Oh yeah, literally, I'd say it's just more fitness. Once you get
Hmm.
into like, I don't think I would ever like, like self-medicate because
Yeah,
again, I don't have a reason to.
yeah,
So it's not
definitely.
something that I'm going to be like super into other than just being an onlooker that
Hmm.
enjoys watching that type of content or that consumes that type of content every once in a while.
Have you do you watch any Renaissance periodization like Mike Israetel's stuff?
No.
I think you would be very interested in just the information that he puts out. He's an exercise scientist, like an actual credentialed PhD, like the actual formal education in the thing,
Hmm.
and his body of work. He's trained very impressive people. He's trained himself to a very impressive, like just physique in and of himself. Um, I think that you just find enjoyment in consuming the content because the presentation is very good and the information is also very good. Like
Yeah.
I attribute a lot of my very recent successes, like specifically in weightlifting, to information that I got from Mike Israetel. Like for example, like I've recently benched 315.
Oh wow.
I
Whoa.
but I did that entirely off of just applying the things that he's describing in videos. Like, okay, this is how we measure recoverable volume. This is how we program. This is like this how we program for linear progression,
Mhm.
and this is how we cycle it. This is how we have an accumulation phase. This is how we go through deloads, through loading weeks and whatnot, and just that the way that he presents the information makes it easy to follow and easy to apply, and I think that's so tremendously useful. And he's just doing that as a free service just on YouTube. You can just go and watch all of the things that are supported by good data. I disagree with him on some things because first of all, uh, his stuff is sports specific to bodybuilding, and my targets are just not. And second of all, so because of like some exercises are going to be less valuable for his training and more valuable for my training. Like I benefit from isometric training, and I understand that it's not marked as a useful exercise in his book because isometric stress doesn't do much for hypertrophy. And I disagree with some of the nutritional stuff because he is in the practice of mid-maxing nutrition, hitting macronutrient intakes, and he's less fussed about like the subtler, more esoteric things such as like the deleterious effect of non-sugar sweeteners on like long-term health and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
And
overall, 99% of his information is just pure gold.
yeah, and it's not it's I'm guessing from the way you're talking about it, it's this type of information that maybe you don't necessarily need to like do a specific thing, but he puts it out there and you can maybe apply it for your own use case.
Yeah. For me, it was I hit a plateau and I didn't understand why.
Mm.
So, like the information that RP puts out enabled me to redesign an approach to my training that made sense. It had progression planned, and I was able to make good educated choices as I was moving through with the plan. Like I understood, okay, like I did this amount of weight on this exercise last week. Linear progression dictates that I need to add reps, sets, or weight on the bar. But, like, for example, going close to one rep max isn't exactly a sustainable practice because injury risk, recoverable volumes, things like that.
Oh, I see.
yeah, you put that stuff together and you just have a better toolkit to guide yourself through it. And if you feel so inclined that you need like the personalized touch, they offer coaching, which like it's more money than I'm willing to pay for that because I'm perfectly fine with putting all of that together. But then again,
Hmm.
maybe I'll plateau on my next cut and I'll need an adult to help me out to figure out my nutrition plan, for example.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, it's there for I'm guessing like actual, when you actually have to go to someone with regarding training. It's
Yeah.
because you need like I don't know. You're either like you seem like you educated yourself to a point where you were able to sustain yourself, but in the future you might need,
Yeah.
you know.
I think that everyone benefits from instruction at certain phases. I don't believe in like complete autodidactation. I think that's how you would you would contort that word. But like I don't think that you can entirely just, consume pure information and just turn that into pure experience. That's extremely inefficient to do. I think it's normal to rely on the direct instruction and feedback on people who have more experience and more knowledge. And that's what I did in the beginning when I just started lifting as a teen. I followed the instruction of like a specific coach was responsible for my progression, who gave me programs, who managed me in an intelligent way. And in the process of doing that, it gave me a baseline competence that I then was able to use to make use of more information that I gained access to as an adult.
Yeah, and I mean eventually you're gonna need more information,
Yeah.
and that's just
Where
that's
I'm
just part of growth, like naturally.
Yeah, there are definitely subtleties that I'm currently missing. There's definitely something that a trained eye would be able to point out by looking at me. I'm just not ready to pay $600 per session for that.
Jeez.
That's a little steep for my pocket right now. When I
Yeah.
get nice fat and like the when I reach that primo golden wagey KG status.
Then you'll be set.
Yeah, exactly. Then I'll hit up Dr. Mike and ask him to put me through the ringer. So you do fitness. You said you don't self-medicate. Does that include supplements?
I don't do supplements. Mainly, I don't like. This sounds a little ridiculous, just because anybody would be like, just get over it. Um, I don't like taking pills. Most supplements,
Hmm.
the most important ones are very big pills.
Is it the form factor that puts you off specifically, or just the concept of having to rely like on an external formulation, like being crutching on a thing that's external to you?
I'd say partially both, because I don't want to
Ah.
depend on something, and I guess
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's laziness that I can attribute it to. But
Hmm.
if I don't want to have to rely on something. I'd rather just find something that works for me. If
Interesting.
if it's working for me and I'm, training a specific like part of my body, then it works for me. But I don't want to keep taking supplements. I don't want to have the sensation of having to take pills.
What about injury prevention?
Um, like how so?
Well, for example, creatine is has a very strong body of evidence behind it that it helps with preventing mechanical injury during like
Oh,
continued
mm,
exposure to workouts.
I haven't looked into it at all. Mostly,
Mm.
I don't know if I don't do like super intensive exercise with like for like weightlifting.
Hmm.
I've never done like something huge and extreme. I mean, for me, it's just always been like the baseline for just
Hmm.
staying fit. Mainly because, like I said before, I don't really need to go into the heavier weights. And other than like joint and ligament injuries for other types of exercises, like I know for a long time the Stairmaster, because that's what I was using just to lose continuously lose weight. It
Mm-hmm.
was kind of hurting my knees a little bit, and that's just
Mm.
I have hypermobility, so
Oh.
it my fucking knees are a little bit destroyed, which is bad.
Is that like inherent hypermobility because of like the way that your joint was sort of out of the factory, or is that through wear?
No, I don't think it's through wear. It's always been that way. I've always had
Ah.
hypermobility. I know a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people they thought double jointed was an actual thing, but it turns out
Mm-hmm.
over the years, it's been corrected to hypermobility. So I've
Ah.
always had issues with that. So for example, with my shoulders, sometimes stuff like I don't think it pops out of the socket because that would be extremely painful, but
Yeah.
sometimes stuff gets out of alignment
Huh.
and yeah, I have to like try to pop it or move it back how it was
Hmm.
because stuff stretches, like
Yeah.
way too out of place in the
Huh.
socket.
Interesting.
So that's something
Th-
I've dealt with, but I try to mitigate that. I do my stretches,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to make sure I kind of stay flexible because I think it's just going to be worse as I age if I don't. I think that's what's going to be the cause for injury, not
Mm,
staying on top of that flexibility.
that's a component of it. Statistically, like longitudinally for people as they age, from what I recall correctly, the main cause of injuries and like therefore illnesses that are associated with that, which is like loss of mobility, and that usually leads to death in older cohorts.
Mm.
The leading cause of that is frailty. So not enough muscle
Oh,
tissue
yeah.
to carry you because building and keeping muscle tissue is very
It
difficult
gets harder.
past yeah, it's very difficult past the age of 50 because a lot of the cell pathways are just no longer a lot of the genetic pathways are no longer there for protein synthesis. Like your myelination sites are just completely blown out. Your mTOR is no longer activating. So and like to borrow, I forget who said that. It was either Peter Attia or Mike Israetel. Is that he said that like there are no 70, 80, and 90-year olds complaining that they are too muscular.
Oh no.
Yeah, because like the more muscle mass you bring to that age, the more sort of injury proof you are. Because what's the most common like downward spiral of old people? They fall, they break a hip because they barely have any muscle mass, and they become sedentary or
Which
they become
makes them
bedridden
so much worse.
and they just wither and die within like 2 years.
Yeah.
Flexibility, though, I admire you for putting in the work because I don't. I'm very lazy about stretching. Um, I did like every direction of splits when I was maybe 16.
Oh,
Got
really?
severe. Yeah, I could do. I can still contort myself into like forward and backward split over the course of a week. I can get myself back to that shape. Like a proper sideways split, that's probably going to be like a month-long project, which I'll very likely bail on because it's just boring to tears. Uh, but I got to that point, I got bored of stretching. I mostly rely on hip mobility for my high kicks,
Yeah.
as opposed to like positioning and hip mobility. And just the muscular strength. I can throw my limb with enough force that it doesn't need to be like stretched out enough for me to reach that high, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that does. And I don't know, I've never been like super keen on doing splits because they're a little scary. I feel like you have to maintain like the stretches to keep doing splits. And I
Yeah,
just think some of those stretches are a little bit more prone to injury. So,
possibly. Yeah, especially with hypermobile joints. Like I can see how some of those angles that you create in your knee are kind of iffy.
yeah. So it's not
Hmm.
a good I But then again, like I don't really need like who does the splits unless
And
you're in a
if you don't have a need
specific
for it,
career.
there's really no reason to aspire to it outside of just the joy of pursuing that. And then pursuing that actually has to be enjoyable and not a chore to do.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
what I did notice with flexibility, because there was a about a year where I wasn't stretching, and I noticed that
Hmm.
it was just making everything worse. It was making
Ah,
exercise worse. I was very stiff, and so that's when
interesting.
I realized like, okay, so I don't want to. I haven't looked at the logistics of it, right? But it was
Hmm.
what it was feeling like to me, and I didn't want to start getting older and then not and start getting stiff
Hmm.
and then maybe risk more injury or not be able to get that flexibility back. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure there's an age when if you haven't been doing it forever, it gets incredibly hard to become flexible again.
From what I've heard, like re-softening yourself into a more flexible state is easier than it is to originally achieve it, but there's definitely like a point of diminishing return as you age because ligaments become less flexible with age. Um, Supplementing with collagen is like a big recommendation to stave that off, I've
Oh yeah.
heard. Yeah, I'm very bad with that because most forms of collagen don't dissolve well in anything. So it's kind of an issue of how do I consistently take it, and it becomes a whole thing.
Yeah, and it's
Uh,
not a lot of the from what I've heard is that a lot of the methods of taking collagen aren't really effective.
that's I guess it depends on the form because dietary collagen has a very low absorption rate
Hmm.
from just my experience. uh like pharmaceutical grade collagen is a little bit better because it's easier to dose yourself to an extent where it becomes effective. uh but then you just need to pick a correct medium. If I don't remember where I got this, but I think the best medium for collagen is like trying to dissolve it in fatty dairy.
Oh, I think I
And
did see something about that before.
yeah, I don't recall why or where I heard that. I just remember hearing that, and it sort of made sense when I heard it. So whenever I remember to take my collagen, I do it with like a kefir or like a yogurt base.
Now, do you take collagen through like a like pill form or
Powder,
powder? Okay.
powder, yeah. Originally, my wife was the one who sort of like tuned into the need to supplement collagen because I was always on the like hit harder, lift big thing, be main chieftain kind of mindset. So for me, it was always like whey, casein, creatine, carnitine variants, like things that are directly like mostly performance boosting rather than things that are for injury prevention. And then since we have collagen, hell, I may as well start trying to take it because I also started getting injured a lot because I was cutting
Oh,
weight.
I see.
Yeah, because with how I cut, I do like large volume workouts and but I also cut my calories pretty severely and that turns my joints and ligaments to just
Oof.
sandpaper. And then it's just a question of when something is going to pop. Like
Oh no. I don't
I
like thinking about that.
I almost threw my shoulder out putting shoes on.
How?
Well, again, I kind of overdo it because like I need to go balls to the wall, otherwise I don't see effects and I get discouraged and I get angry and I'm already hungry. So because of that, like my 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 limiting behaviors are already not great. My fuse is already very short. So to lessen the suffering, I will sometimes do what's referred to as a mini cut. And a mini cut is like a 4 to 6 week period of inducing 1,000 calorie deficit,
Oh.
which means that there are basically no carbs, but I still have to work out for my endurance stuff and to keep muscle on. So like it's not an issue of if you're going to get injured, you're just going to get injured eventually.
Yeah.
And that's why I started supplementing collagen to help me recover through that.
Hmm. Well, at least you figured that out.
Yeah.
And maybe I should look into that because I'm sure, I mean, a lot of people take collagen for skin elasticity.
Yeah.
Um, so it's useful for that. That's mainly what I've seen people use it for, but I also know
Mm.
I should probably if my shit's gonna get uh worse, like my physical ailments are gonna get worse, and maybe that's something that I should look out for.
I think even like your aspiration for flexibility collagen may be beneficial to your flexibility work because like if you take a dietary supplement, it doesn't have like a local effect. It's going to be systemic
Hmm.
because it's a molecule. Well, in that particular case, it's an amino acid that's just readily available in excess for your body. Therefore, your body is going to utilize however much it can absorb, and
Yeah.
it's going to apply that in all applicable tissue. And in the case of collagen, it is pretty much all soft tissue, from skin, ligament, even actual contractile tissue also makes use of collagen anyway.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's another thing I wanted to ask. Do you have like some sort of structured approach to stretching, or do you just ballpark it? How do you approach that?
Um, I just ballpark it. I
Ah,
think I mean it's stretching. I don't know if I've never looked at it as like a science
hmm.
or like I don't know. I've seen people that I mean, there's your different types of stretches. So I know to that extent, but in terms of overdoing it or stuff like that, I think I don't know, I ballpark it.
I see. Have you had any exposure to yoga?
No, I've wanted to try, but I feel like I need to go to a class for that. There's probably like
Oh yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
good
yeah, yeah.
way to like get into that. Um, but no, I haven't looked at yoga that closely.
I'd say a class is probably the best way to do that, like because it, at least for me, it's kind of arcane, and you need to rely on the expertise of someone who's had a degree of like structured knowledge in it, at least initially, at least to just show you some basic cycles and make sure that you're performing them safely before
Yeah,
you try and attempt that on your own.
which for weightlifting that is super important. There's no
Yeah,
way to I mean, you can go into it alone, but usually, I mean, that's what videos are for. People have, there's structured um reps and everything
yeah.
online. So that's what that's for, but I think
There
there are
are,
some things that going into it blind is can be dangerous. Like you can't.
yeah. Well, for one, like yoga is a structured discipline. Like there's just knowledge that needs to be passed on along a lineage. It's very similar to a martial art in that sense, that there's lineage, there's instructions, and there's an understood path that that knowledge took, and there's a reason why this knowledge was preserved in a certain shape by the time it reaches you. And there's just a lot of hidden subtleties that you're just not going to get from simply observing material that's readily available. And by just observing, you're not going to have that external person who can cue you into correct experiences with the technique.
Yeah,
That is
you
even,
lack the
yeah,
correction.
yes. Not only the correction, you lack the feedback of someone who understands the internal experience of going through the motions correctly. In that sense, it's even more similar to a martial art than, for example, weightlifting is. Because weightlifting, like the stimulus is pretty understood. There's only so many ways to fuck up a deadlift, realistically.
Yeah.
Like you pick up the heavy thing and then you put it down. Uh, there are subtleties, but they're still more appreciable from the outside, and it's easier to cue yourself in with a certain amount of experience.
Yeah.
Martial arts and yoga have those like internal experiences, the internal sensations of going through certain movements, that are only understood through experience, and only people who have had that experience of going through correct movement patterns can reinforce and guide those in someone who's new to the art. I hope I'm saying that in a way that makes sense.
No, yeah, it makes sense. They carry like their own specific like cultures in a sense of how
Yeah,
stuff should be done correctly.
yeah, yeah. And that like the guiding posts to doing a thing correctly is like the experiential feedback that you get. Like for example, there's a tactile feedback to like producing an effective sword cut, for example, through like a standard target. And that feedback is tactile and it is visceral, and it is very difficult to formulate it in the form of like a written description and explanation.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you need to rely on a sensei to sort of guide you through that experience and guide you through the certain hurdles that you're going to fall into.
Yeah, because from the start they already know, like they know what becomes difficult for beginners.
Yeah.
They
Not
know
even just beginners, just
yeah,
what
people in
what
general.
happens on all stages of acquiring a certain set of knowledge. What happens along the progression to mastery. There's different ways to describe that. There's usually in martial arts they like to describe that through Buddhist canon. The subtle smiles exchanged between Buddha and Kashyapa, one of his closest students. That's usually the little anecdote that's used to demonstrate that in Zen
Mm.
adjacent practices, like the shared understanding of an experience.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're interested in yoga, I definitely think that looking for a class is the way to go. The problem is, yoga has suffered like martial
Oh
arts.
yeah, it's been watered down.
Some places, at the very least, call the watered down version of yoga Pilates. At the very least, they market it separately. I'm not sure where you would even look for authentic yoga these days. Like when I lived in Europe, it was a little bit easier because for some reason there's just a better permeation of authentic yoga. And you would have like Buddhist culture centers that had very good instructors. For some reason, very easy to find. Like you'd need to go out of your way to look for bad yoga, and that would typically be found in like fitness centers and gyms.
But in the U.S.,
It's mostly bad.
it's yeah. Which
Yeah, I can see that.
I think even like Pilates is getting watered down in its own.
How do you water down Pilates? It's
I
there's
f-
nothing left.
yeah, I have no clue, but from what I've
They've
seen, it's
managed
so
it.
simple. It's just so much simpler, and I don't know how you can simplify it.
They've managed that. They've managed to produce like the Taibo of yoga.
Like, do I think Pilates is? I don't know. I have a hard time with it because I don't know if it's doing anything. I
Hmm.
think because there's so many people that say, well, no, it's you are using your own muscles to, I guess, strengthen your own muscles just because
Well,
of what they
yeah,
withstand. But I,
through plyometrics, sure, yeah. Well, I
yeah,
mean, technically, it's the same in yoga. It's just that yoga forms are. Uh, uh, I may be misremembering that, but isn't Pilates just a simplification of yoga through the use of like external equipment, like the Bosu balls and the booster blocks or whatever they use there?
well, I've seen that people use that from clips that I've looked at. But the thing about that is, I've also seen people stop using anything at all.
And it's still
So
Pilates.
yeah, so like extending
Ah.
your arm and then bringing it back, or something super simple where you're not using any equipment and you're only
Hmm.
using your limbs. So it gets to a
Okay.
point where I'm like, I don't know if that's doing anything.
I mean, bodyweight plyometrics are a thing. Like they do stuff. Like for example, like martial arts are they involve a lot of plyometrics. Like I'll do kata, for example, as a training
Mhm.
modality a lot of the times. Like for example, I'm about to enter like a very, very dedicated phase of preparing for a black belt exam in knockdown karate, and that involves doing a lot of form work. And the purpose of that is to A, build up strength specifically in the lower extremities and back.
Hmm.
And you do that without the benefit of any kind of external equipment or external stress. Just you going through the curriculum and executing the motions with good emphasis and good form is enough to give a very, very sufficient workout. Like I'll do kata work for 3 hours and I'll just be a complete drenched wreck at the end of it, and I'll be barely walking the next day.
But that's where I don't know if Pilates would do anything
Pilates
remotely.
probably doesn't do that on the same scale. The best way to honestly, the best way to find out if it does is to try it. If you do a thing and you're tired, and if you feel that there is a physiological change in the affected tissue, then it's doing something. Like,
Maybe I should test it out.
just try it. There's no harm in doing it. It's definitely not harmful. Like the safety profile is definitely there. So the worst thing that happens is it does nothing,
Yeah.
and
And
or
waste
it
your
does.
time.
Fuck, listen. It's probably a better use of time than just doing nothing with it and wondering if it does something.
That's
Like
true.
like like in weightlifting or in bodybuilding, people say that like, oh yeah, like the sorer your muscle, the better. And from like a nitpicking perspective, it's not entirely true. Like late onset muscle soreness isn't a direct indication of how effective your training is, but it's a pretty sustainable proxy of at least understanding that the exercise you're doing is affecting a target muscle.
Hmm.
Like if I do, I don't know, like a Romanian deadlifts, and my entire glutes are just on fire during, and I can barely bend my leg the day after. Yeah, it looks like Romanian deadlifts are good for glutes.
Yeah, like it feels like you're actually, you're using the
Yeah,
muscles.
yeah, and if Pilates like produces a similar effect, at least up to a certain point, like until you acclimate to the stimulus, then that would mean that Pilates is also effective at that. And if it doesn't produce that, despite you like not being habituated to it, then yeah, then Pilates is bullshit and doesn't do anything.
We need you to go in and test it.
Me? Wait, how did this end up with me doing Pilates? Excuse me, I don't recall questioning the effectiveness of it.
Pull you in for the ride.
I did do yoga for a bit. The only reason I stopped is because it was conflicting with my combatives.
Oh,
I,
yeah, I can see
yeah.
how.
Well, just there's only so much time within a day, and like I was in university at the time, so it was like I had to carve out time, and it had to be like at the expense of lifting, and I'm generally not on board on doing like I don't value yoga over lifting, so the yoga had to go.
Yeah, you gotta switch
Even
it
though I
up.
had like a good formally trained instructor.
Hmm.
Based on your attitude towards like the state of commercialized martial art, you seem to have had some exposure to both good and bad. You seem to have some very educated takes
Well,
on combatives in general.
well, I'm not super like an expert on stuff like UFC or
Okay.
um, but I ha I have seen how what it's like. I've been able to differentiate what a local martial arts um offers versus, what's supposed like professional level is supposed to, set you up to.
What's your benchmark? I'm interested in that. I agree that UFC, first of all, the UFC definitely doesn't hold a monopoly for effective training. It's a funny sport to watch. It's great as like modern bread and circuses. Some of the fighters are interesting to look at,
Yeah,
but
I'd say it's more of an interesting
yeah.
field.
Definitely not panacea, definitely not a monopoly. There's more fighting outside of the context of UFC that's effective fighting.
Yeah,
But
but mainly I mean growing up, my brother went into Taekwondo, and he was really dedicated
Ah,
for that, with that for a long time. So I think he was
okay.
in there for maybe 7 years.
Ooh,
But from what I saw, I couldn't, like, I felt like it was lacking a little
okay.
because it didn't feel like super strictly controlled or trained.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a feeling like maybe it was, we're in the rural US where I am. So I had a feeling maybe it wasn't like the best representation of what a martial arts um like center was supposed to offer.
Uh-huh.
So that's mainly where I started comparing to more like professional level
Mm-hmm.
clips, or even just the training. I could see that there was a difference. It was
That
more like tightly controlled
the
and
training
corrective.
intensity wasn't quite there.
Not like the intensity of it, but just I don't want to say perfecting it. Um,
The diligence maybe wasn't quite the same as
yeah. The
hmm.
diligence and just the environment wasn't as strict.
What was the
Um,
standard against so you see, like, those are all correct things to note. You can't, like, in order to know that, you need to know better. That's what I'm trying to dig at. You know better.
maybe I wouldn't say that I'm super like educated on it though. I don't want to like yeah.
Here's the thing. Like, what I'm clearly seeing, like, in order to recognize that something is lacking, you need to have an established standard, like an established palette against which you're comparing. Because usually most people will see a thing and, like, on the face of it, they will take that as a standard, and then they'll either be introduced to a better standard or a worse one, and that's usually like the comparative judgment that we typically go through. That's why they say that enlightenment is disappointment at everything that you knew up to that point. So if you're questioning training methods in Taekwondo, which you correctly are, there are very obvious deficits in just in Taekwondo as it exists in the world, and especially in like strip mall Taekwondo, doubly so. So you're obviously comparing against some kind of standard, which is what I'm trying to get at here.
Oh, well, I was mainly looking, well, because I was doing research on it, and it was mainly comparing it to like actual Korean, like native Taekwondo.
Aha.
Like, um, what's it called? When you're looking at it at its origin
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how training is in a different place, in this
Okay.
case Korea, versus here. And I think there was a
Ah.
lack of, I don't know what it is. It's just, again, I don't want to say perfection, but the standards are much higher. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, yeah,
There
yeah.
we
Just
go.
about to say that. Yeah. A lack of standards is definitely something that a lot of commercialized martial arts do suffer from, and like especially like the McDojo strip mall brand of martial arts is a big sufferer of that.
And especially because the taekwondo that my brother was doing, as he was growing up, it was the person who ran it always wanted to hold it to a high standard because he was trained by someone that was very beloved, very beloved. Where's my
Hmm.
verb for this? But that was very
Res-
appreciated in Korea.
Revered, maybe?
Yeah, it was very revered in Korea.
Ah, okay.
So my thing was like, well, if you're wanting to hold it to like that high standard, then why aren't you?
Why aren't you enforcing it in your students?
Yeah, because this guy would go
Ah,
around and talk about like how his I don't know what the term is in
yeah,
taekwondo, but how
instructor.
his
Yeah.
instructor was greatly revered, how they all appreciated him,
Mm-hmm.
how like, oh, you are from this, like, you have trained under this person, like that is a
Mm-hmm.
very impressive. This person
Mm-hmm.
is very admired by
Like
like
he came
all
from a
of Korea. Like he
yeah,
was notable.
Respected lineage, basically.
Yeah, and so
Hmm.
from there, I was like, well, why? If you're trying to hold it to that standard and keep up that legacy, because his instructor passed away a long time ago,
Yeah.
then why isn't it? So that was my main.
Why
That's when I
isn't that
started
what you're
looking at like
teaching?
what Korean Taekwondo was like in native
Ah,
Korea.
okay. Okay. But have you actually participated in any kind of training, or were you just sitting on the sidelines and judging
No, I was
silently?
sitting on the sidelines. I wanted to go into it, but like I said, if I felt
Well,
like
yeah,
it would
if it
be, it
looks
would,
bad, why would yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense. I just figured that maybe at some point you discovered something that would be like more appealing, that looked a little bit more impactful.
yeah, or that was more
Just
standardized.
or just at least, viable.
Yeah. So I didn't want to get into something and put my 7 years into something that wasn't going
Yeah.
to benefit, not even benefit me, but could, what's it called? Wow,
It's
enhance my
it's not
life.
yeah, it's not like it's not going to provide what is advertised, because they're advertising that there's supposed to be a martial art. The inherent value proposition of a martial art is that you become competent in violence.
Yes.
And Taekwondo doesn't do that. Even good Taekwondo barely does that, if we're being completely transparent.
Yeah, as a defense, it does. It's not effective.
I'll say that even as an offense, it's barely effective.
Yeah. So I feel like it's at least for this type of martial arts, it's something that's more for competitive scenarios.
Yeah, for sporting. Actually, Olympic rules are arguably what has done the most damage to the practice of Taekwondo, because its origins are in being army combatives
Hmm.
for the Korean army. It was a use of karate training methods that was brought over by an army combative specialist and then used as a basis for creating mm, Korean army combatives, basically. I forget the name of the guy, but that's like their original lore. And after Taekwondo became an Olympic sport, their rule set started shifting towards like what I refer to as safetyism.
Yeah, so you don't have injury.
Yeah, and it sort of became like this completely washed out game, and because the primary medium through which success is achieved in Taekwondo is being on Olympic teams and like winning Olympic gold,
Hmm.
then the training methods shifted towards that meta, where now it's just basically weaponized prancing, and all of the training is for that same purpose. And
Yeah,
you're left with like an entire you're left with generations of people training to not be able to fight.
because the whole point is not to injure people anymore, which
Yeah.
I feel it becomes a shell of its former self at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. That's for example why I want judo to be ejected from the Olympics, and why I want karate to never be adopted. Because that's just the Olympics are a harmful it's a fraudulent organization that exists at the expense of the athletes, while also actively harming any sport that becomes a part of it, is what I maintain.
Yeah, all of these standards, like I understand for safety that maybe, like they have to put rules in place, but it gets to a point where it starts
Well,
sports start losing their identity
yeah,
because of
there's
it.
like there should be an understood hazard of contact sports. Like if two people enter into an arena and they're competing in skill to hurt each other, it's
What do
kind
you
of re
expect will
it's kind
happen?
of yeah, it's kind of reasonable to expect that someone's going to get fucking hurt. That's sort of the purpose of the exercise. Um, Judo has done better. They've sort of suffered from not only safetyism, but from being forced to be visually different from wrestling, and the Olympics want like a showier, more
Oh,
proactive kind of engagement. Fortunately, judo also, like, because judo is still monopolized by the Japanese. There is a governing body other than the Olympic Committee. The Olympic Committee exists basically. It has to negotiate with the International Judo Federation, which is like the primary global Japan-based governing body. The
Hmm.
Japanese are still largely in control of what happens in the sport of judo. That's not the case with Taekwondo. Taekwondo, that's it. Like the Olympics are your premier competition. The Koreans do not set the rules.
Yeah.
And as a result, you have what you have, with judo at least attempting to claw back some semblance of what it's supposed to be. And even internally, the Japanese sometimes give the Olympic Commission a middle finger, saying that, you know what, fuck you guys, we're going to bring back leg grabs for our just internal All Japan rules, and you can cry about it.
Yeah, they can just cope with it.
Yeah, and because of that, judo is still like a tremendously effective martial art while benefiting from being an Olympic sport, and because of that, it's like readily available. Even if you're like in Hicktown, bumfuck nowhere, there's very likely to, at the very least, be one certified judo school that's part of the larger hierarchy that like at some point, if you trace your lineage well enough, you're going to trace it back to Kado Jigoro, the founder of judo.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Suppose you find a place that teaches like decently effective martial arts. Would you be exposed to doing that?
Yeah, I'd be up for it. I mean,
Hmm.
I think having something for defense would be nice, and especially something that has its own like nuanced culture.
Mm-hmm.
I to appreciate. I think I'd enjoy doing that.
Have you considered buying a gun?
Um,
I'm semi joking actually. I'm half joking.
no, I haven't considered buying one. Um, okay, there's some like legality that I can't like go super into it. Okay, not like
Okay.
I'm a felon. I'm not a felon or anything.
Are you sure? Please have a seat right over here.
But no, I consider that maybe in the future,
Hmm.
it would be nice to have as like a protective measure.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
So just to explain where I'm coming from, like I am currently 220 pounds. I am arguably just done this from a statistical perspective. I'm an elite level striker and a pretty unpleasant grappler. I carry a gun on me every day. Like every time I go, not even just to go outside of my apartment, like not just when I leave my home. I don't open my front door unless I am the one deciding that the door has to be opened right now, which means that like I've decided that right now I'm going to take the garbage out or something. If I'm not the one initiating the door being opened, that being a delivery, someone knocking at my door, like some external factor
Hmm.
prompting me to open the door, I will have a gun in my hand as I open that door. Despite the fact that like everything about me is very much well prepared and equipped for violence.
Hmm.
I do that not because like I'm not sure that all of this shit is gonna work or fall apart, but because I want to have like that ultimate equalizer, that ultimate backstop against a situation that I should not have to suffer through.
Yeah, like the security over something that you may not be able to control.
Basically, yes. Like, for example, like if someone initiates a fight with me, I don't want to roll that dice. I don't want to expose myself to injury. I don't want to like risk rolling on the ground. I don't want to expose myself to striker's luck. I'm not the one initiating this situation. You've decided to assault me, and if I think that you present a realistic threat, I will put three center mass. I will put
Yeah.
you down like a fucking dog because I haven't like you're the one inflicting this situation on me, and I'm just not going to participate in this. And I have the luxury of choosing that. I can choose to that I don't want to participate in that. I think that like the median-sized woman doesn't even have the choice to participate in that particular competition.
No, there's no. Yeah, as a okay, so I'll put it a little bit into perspective how it is for women,
Hmm.
and I'm guessing you mentioned you have a wife. I'm guessing she probably
Yeah.
figured the strength difference out.
Yeah.
But it's literally a dude that's not trying hard to like move your arms, right?
Hmm.
That is enough to like maybe hurt a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing, you know, comparatively, that normal like grasp of your hand or like movement of your arm compared to some like full force, so with ill intent, someone with ill intent, that if this dude, the average dude, wanted to injure you as a woman, they could
Hmm.
very easily snap your wrist, your
Yeah.
bones, or injure your ligaments. Some, you know, to
Yeah.
some capacity.
That's
It's
generally correct.
easy.
Yeah.
It's super easy to do that. And I mean, it's like you're handling a baby, right? Or a small child. And
Like a
if you
young
know that if
child. Yeah.
you maybe pull too hard, you're going to injure the child because
Pretty much. Yeah.
there's the strength differences there.
Yeah. Just the tensile strength of the of the soft tissue is different. The bone density is what this can be easily summed up into testosterone is a hell of a drug.
It is.
Yeah, and men have what, like an order of magnitude more natural secretion than women have once we hit puberty. Like after 13 years old, it's like at 13, it's still at least somewhat even. Like 15 and further on, it is completely jober. It's just no longer a competition. So you've correctly noted, and like every time it's been tried, just statistically, an untrained or barely trained man still has the capacity for violence that is comparable to most professional athlete women.
Yeah, and that's just how it is. I mean,
Yeah,
biologically.
yeah. Like
Um
I mean, we did recently test what happens when a man competes with women in combat sports. So we can rely on that feedback from the women who've been publicly beaten by a man.
yeah, and there's just no there's I mean, that's why they teach women in self-defense courses to run away and
Hmm.
disengage from the situation because
Yeah,
there's no fighting that.
pretty much. Yeah, there's it's barely a competition. Like from so I women's self-defense courses are a very mixed bag. I prefer the ones that at least go through the steps of inflicting maximal damage as you disengage.
Yeah.
I respect the ones that focus on weapon retention and production in the course of a physical altercation significantly more.
Yeah, because that's the most feasible way of inflicting like damage and defending yourself.
It's not even about inflicting damage. It's like the only realistic scenario in which you have the odds of survival.
Yes, that's true too.
Yeah, like the best and most surefire way for a woman to survive a physical altercation with an adult man is to produce a gun, shoot him, and then roll his body off of herself.
Yeah. And even that's difficult because
Yeah.
I'm guessing that rolling like this heavy dude off
Listen,
of you is fucking pain in the ass.
listen, if he's already bleeding out, you at the very least have the luxury of taking your time with that.
Yeah. One and done.
But if you get a respectable bench pressing number, or if you're a competent grappler, then rolling the body off of you also becomes easier.
That's true. That's the only benefit of like the other part of self-defense.
I kind of disagree with that. Again, there's a reason why I still actively train striking and grappling, despite the fact that I have unlocked the gunfu skill tree. I maintain that a competence in striking is necessary to know how to not get hit.
Hmm.
I maintain that a competence in grappling is needed to make sure that your weapon stays yours.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that.
And being able to fight to gain access to your weapon, because like in a situation of like exchanging grabs, in a situation of someone attempting to limit your mobility, you need to fight to reach your gun,
Yeah.
because like even if it's in an over the waistband holster, which is it's unlikely to be because most people, especially women, don't open carry, it means that you need to reach, like, for example, if you're carrying concealed in your waistband, it means that you need to go past the concealment garment, establish a positive grip, and produce it in a way where you're going to shoot whatever is trying to hold you down as opposed to shooting through your own hand.
Otherwise, you're the one that's getting shot.
Exactly. Or at the very least, you're just going to have that weapon taken from you. And that's where a baseline competence in grappling sort of kicks in. That's where you start shifting the odds a lot, because in that situation, the typical criminal element who's really not well trained, he's
Hmm.
usually someone who's relied on a strength differential between men and women, because that's why he preys on women,
He
a
recognizes that.
he's a weak dipshit, and that's all he can do. He can rely just on the inherent strength difference between men and women. So, given that he is a feeble scumfuck, it's very likely that he's not trained. And that means that if you, as a trained woman, can post up against him correctly, start breaking down his stance, free up your draw hand, draw and ventilate him
Mm.
in a situation where you would otherwise not be able to go through those cycles. And that's why I maintain that grappling is still a very useful skill.
Oh, I see. Hmm.
The instruction in hand to hand is important, but I think that for adult people and especially women, it should the cycle of resistance should go through gun. Like you need to pass go, you need to collect $200. Like you need to get to drawing your gun and putting a live round into someone who's trying to assault you.
Yeah.
I think all arts, all effective arts are important, and like doing one but not the other, I think it demonstrates a lack of seriousness, and it's just not a comprehensive, it's not a good faith attempt to try to solve that particular problem.
Hmm. Yeah, because you can't just rely on one thing.
Yeah. And I'm a big advocate of just like, people in my surroundings and my friends being safe and nothing bad happening to them.
Yeah. And especially, you know, women friends and the people that are most susceptible to it, the
See, listen,
children.
that's where I start. I I'm not I'm not yet libertarian enough to also arm the children.
Yeah, that's not what I meant.
Not not quite. Let's slow down there a little
If
bit.
we armed every child in a 31 child classroom, there would be no more school shootings.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. I say that, but like for example, once I am in the child rearing business, like I will have to acclimate a child to the fact that, firearms are real and they have to be treated with respect and they're just a tool to be used. So like I'm not going to wait until 18 years old. Because that's just a competence that has to be built up over time. And it would be like supremely hypocritical and also counterproductive of me to like just gatekeep an essential skill that I engage with on a frequent basis from my child. If I want
Yeah.
while also maintaining that that's an important skill to have, would I would I insist on my child going to school strapped? Probably not. But then again, that's more of a like a legalistic kind of thing. Personally, I think that like a 16-year-old, if he is well parented, if there's like no pathology, no behavioral problems there, Like a 16-year-old can be trusted with a firearm in order to ensure their safety. You can't legally do that, and because of that, I'd have to draw from the well of growing up in a country with no guns
Mm.
and just give the kid a knife and teach him to use it, which is also a great deterrent. Knives are great. They're gruesome as fuck, but effective at what they do.
Oh, yeah. I've seen. I don't know. It's probably worse getting stabbed than shot. I mean, it's
Uh there's there's degrees to that. Depends on what you get shot with.
yeah,
Depends
and
on how
depends
you
on
get
where you get
stabbed.
shot.
You do have higher odds of surviving of getting shot with like cheap ammo. Because usually like, gangbangers with switches and stick mags aren't
Hmm.
exactly the income cohort who can afford jacketed hollow points for everyday use. So most likely that's going to be full metal jackets. Full metal jackets actually, like, as long as the bullet doesn't lodge inside of you, affect bone structure. Essentially, if it just passes through soft tissue, your odds of survival are
Are pretty good
significantly better. Yes, as opposed to a dedicated knife attacker.
because most people, well, I'd say most people that are attacking with knives go for really vital areas or organ areas.
It depends on their degree of training. The instinctual way of using knives is to slash,
Hmm.
and slashing isn't particularly effective. It's scary as fuck. But it doesn't really produce a stopping effect quickly. It just splatters a lot of blood from extremities.
Hmm.
People who are a little bit more intent on actually murdering someone, they're going to target the abdomen.
Yeah.
People who are professionals at killing people with knives, they are going to work off of your nearest extremity, and then they are going to travel along points of attachment that you present to them. In that sense, like, killing someone with a knife is very similar to how dogs operate, like trained attack dogs. They'll bite at an extremity, and once you present a target with more blood flow, they will
Oh,
switch over to that target. The logic of using a knife is the same. You start with an available extremity, and then you basically just boa constrict. You pull them in until you can get to the nice and chewy bits.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a logic to it, and there's a process to it. Fortunately, most people aren't trained in knives. You have certain epicenters where knife culture is robust. Some South American countries where weapons are difficult to come by. Spain, for some reason, was historically a hotbed of knife fighting. They were, for some reason, very keen on stabbing each other to death.
I guess right now, England or parts of the UK.
Yeah, the United Caliphate seems to be progressing alongside that. I don't know if those people have a lot of training though, because the typical participants of knife crime in the UK are urban youths that aren't really relying like on a heritage or a history of having knives or using them intelligently. It's
Mm.
more basically it's their version of gang crime.
Hmm.
So it's a similar misnomer, like people will call like when people say gun violence, it's the same misnomer as knife violence. No, it's just violence. The tool is a means to an end. The origin point and the end point is the person actually executing the violence. If there is a will, there is a way.
That's right. They
Yeah.
always find a way.
Exactly. Like if you have access to neither, I'm sorry, but bludgeoning someone to death is also, I wouldn't say easy to do. You need a certain degree of motivation, but it's doable.
I guess.
This got dark very
Yeah.
quickly. I'm sorry about that.
Now I gotta think about people
Uh,
bludgeoning people.
Apparently that happens quite a bit statistically. I forget if bludgeoning deaths in the US outnumber all gun-related deaths, or just the rifle ones. It's been a while since I brushed up on my statistics on that. I'm pretty sure they definitely
Hmm.
outnumber rifles. I'm not sure if all gun related stuff, because our gun statistics are extremely
No,
polluted.
really, yeah.
They're
They're-
they're inflated because like our gun deaths include suicide by gun, which is like it's not a homicide. Why are we counting it as such?
Oh, I didn't know that. Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. 60% of all gun deaths are suicides.
You'd think they'd separate that a little bit. I
Well,
mean,
it
like it
depends.
counts as a gun death, but
Yeah, but they present it as gun homicide. That's the
mm,
thing. When they say gun death, they want to elicit the thought of homicide. They think that someone is being violently gunned down. No, it's someone who is in a bad spot in life, who's so desperate that they take the easy way out, and them lacking a gun is not going to fix that.
yeah.
And the problem is like the people who are collecting these studies are like they're doing what's referred to as lying with statistics. Once you can tailor your data sets
Mm,
to show the outcome that you want, basically. And that's what people in charge. I believe that's a CDC statistic, and they had an interest in an instruction of portraying guns as a problem. So they had to puff those numbers basically. So you have the suicides. It's also not. It also includes cop shootings, like kind of an odd thing to count in that statistic if it's law enforcement.
yeah, that's true.
It's sort of that shootings in the line of duty. Very rarely cops go out and hunt someone. It also includes self-defense shootings, which like sure, like the technical term is still justifiable homicide,
Hmm.
but it's not entirely intellectually honest to say that like a justifiable self-defense shooting is the same as just a gun homicide.
Mm,
That's it's literally someone protecting their life with the use of a firearm.
yeah, which I don't know. You just need a little distinction there.
Yeah, yeah. So like once you start cutting away at the numbers that are not supposed to be in that stat, it starts looking significantly less scary, and then you realize that yeah, actual criminality with the use of a gun is like localized to LA and Chicago
Mm.
or fucking Detroit, Michigan, I guess. And it's actually statistically irrelevant for the rest of the country.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't looked at those specific statistics before.
I take personal issue when people have wrong opinions about things I like, and I like guns. I like them from just the standpoint of what I refer to as male pattern train autism, um, which is it's the male fascination with mechanical things working well.
Yeah, I could see that.
It has nothing to do with the function of the thing, but I like something in the male brain is scratched very pleasantly when a mechanical implement, preferably a metallic one, is just well put together and it just moves around in an intended way and it clicks and it does stuff.
Well, I've seen it too with history.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge I'm not a huge history nerd. I know my stuff here and there, but there are a lot of dudes. Like there are so many more dudes that are just interested in it, like obsessively.
Yeah. Because listen, men like the meme about like men will turn 25 and pick one of these as their entire personality, and it's like barbecuing, guns, cars, and hunting. Or I forget what the fourth one is. It's probably video games or like the Warhammer minis.
Yeah,
The
specifically Warhammer minis.
the real strat is picking all four.
But then you have how much money can you invest in each one of those before
Uh
you run out?
all of it. These are not, yeah, male hobbies are like corporate America has figured out that men are willing to spend money on hobbies, and it was over. We were completely cooked by that. Now you have fucking Traeger grill ads playing intermittently with fucking I don't know I guess gun companies sort of advertise themselves. Warhammer doesn't need to advertise themselves. The lore does it for them. It's called plastic cocaine for a reason. Cocaine doesn't need an ad campaign. So yeah, it do be like that. It's rough out there. But yeah, listen, if you ever need help like scoping out a place and like determining whether or not it's bullshito, just listen, feel free to send me some footage of the place or some like visual materials that they present, and I'll be able to scale that on the McDojo scale for you.
That would be cool. I've been a little curious about. I mean, obviously, I said I recognize that it was a little bit of a lower standard, but I wonder like how
Well,
bullshit it is.
well, the Taekwondo stuff is out the door. Like that's not even worth considering. I'd say a general recommendation for someone who wants to get into combat sports as an adult. I'd say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just because it's ubiquitous and the competition is high.
Oh yeah, I've seen it, it's had a big resurgence.
Yeah, yeah, it's very big. It's very popular. Well, because it's like a decently well structured sport that has like understood career perspectives for people who practice it seriously. And we're near the origin point. Brazil is like reasonably close, and we have a big Brazilian diaspora in America.
Very
So that
true.
and people are also able to go from America to Brazil to train, and like there are Gracie derived gyms or like there's good carryover and there's enough calling out bullshit that it's very difficult to teach bad Brazilian
Mhm.
jiu-jitsu because people know better and will call you out. The other one is judo. It's a little bit more sports specific, and BJJ admittedly is also becoming like that. But it'll still give you like a baseline competence in like manipulating a body that is within reach.
Hmm.
I think those are good starting points, and they're also safe in terms of their injury profile compared to striking sports.
Maybe one day. I feel really old, like in terms of getting into stuff super late because usually you have, people that have been training in whatever sport or martial art
Can I just
since they
blow you
were.
out of the water with that line of argumentation just real quick?
Just go ahead.
I am 33. I've started judo pretty much completely. Well, okay, not completely fresh, but I did not do judo previously, and I started months ago.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Wow.
I did traditional jujitsu. There's a lot of carryover, sure, but the training methods are different. It's still like very new to me. It's a new
Hmm.
language for me, and so far I'm making a goodwill effort to learn. If an old if an old haggard dog like myself is capable of learning, I think you'll be fine.
I'm very competitive, so I want.
Well, there
I
you
like,
go.
yeah,
All the better.
yeah. I mean,
It's like I had this one interaction with one of my mods. He's like a younger guy. I think he's 20 now. So
hmm
he was like posting himself doing he was doing knuckle ups because I said that, palm push-ups are not for men. And he decided to one up me and says, "What about finger push-ups?" Finger push-ups even better, like big if true if you can do them. And he then posted a video of himself doing three finger push-ups. Let's
oh,
see if I can
oh
contort.
wow.
So like when you have like your thumb and your middle and index finger as points of pressure. And good for him, he did like good five good push-ups with three fingers. But me being an asinine asshole, I went and recorded myself doing 10 push-ups on two fingers, just
You
the
one
thumb and
up.
the index. Of course I did. Well, that's because I've been doing finger push-ups since before he was fucking born. Like that's great, but also hold my beer.
Hmm.
So I get the mindset. I get the mindset and I respect it. So yeah, go for it. Even not even that, like for example, like my example is still kind of lukewarm because people get into stuff like Brazilian jiu-jitsu in their 40s and 50s and they see a
Hmm.
lot of success.
Hmm.
um like my dad gets into a new sport roughly every 10 years, and he's a gentleman of advanced age. He's in his 70s.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he just because he's bored, he's gonna start like learning kettlebells, or I don't know, like he dropped triathlon just because it was kind of boring and the chronic cardio wasn't great. But by dropping triathlon, it means that he can still like swim a mile.
Wow.
And he
Okay.
continues like adding new stuff to the mix of things that he does, and it's all like new movement patterns. He started doing Tai Chi Chuan just for shits and giggles recently.
Well, he sounds really like fit and, you know,
Yeah.
active. That's the most
Oh yeah.
important part.
Yeah. We've had the exercise addict bug in the family. Like I never had a shot of beating it. To my point, I think you're fine to start learning something new.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, I'm relatively young, but I don't know, I get into one thing, I finish it, and then it's like I feel like I'm running out of time.
I mean, for one, there needs to be a finishing point. It's very difficult to finish learning martial arts. I'll tell you that much. I started at the age of when did I start doing that more or less intelligently? I'd say I started actual like dedicated structured training
Hmm.
at the age of was it 16? Probably just about when I was turning 16. And I've yet to find the bottom of that particular barrel.
You got plenty of time to
Uh,
go.
sure. I think, listen, I've seen people in very advanced stages who still like learn stuff as they're teaching it. I've had the privilege of receiving a little bit of instruction from one of the students of the founder of judo. The man was in his, I believe, very late 90s. Well, not 90s. I think he was like 92 at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, old timer was still hanging on and still discovering new things. At the time, specifically, that my most vivid interaction was he was explaining how to remove a grip from a lapel because I was doing it wrong, and so he held on to my lapel and told me to try. And I shit you not, I struggled with breaking the grip of a 90-year-old
Damn.
because he was on that grind for like longer than two generations of my family have been alive.
That's really impressive too.
Yeah. So I aspire to achieve that esoteric knowledge. And like the only way you do that is by starting. Like the only way you get to melding those fat golden cores is
Getting into
by
it.
get yeah, by getting onto the track.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's getting a little late. So I'm not gonna hold you hostage. It feels like you're being considerate of me and just letting me yap.
No, no, it's okay. I think you are very experienced in a lot of ways. But
Uh,
yeah.
probably doesn't stop me from being a dumbass. But
Hmm.
we're sort of breaching the 4 hour
Oh
mark,
yeah.
and yeah, and we can always do just an episode too if there's more stuff that you'd like to cover. But other than that, would you please tell the people what they should look out for if there's any content that you'd like to plug, if there's any specific channel that people should consume your content through?
YouTube and Twitch are
What do you do
mainly
on
my two
YouTube?
channels. Sometimes I make shitty shitty funny videos. It's
Oh,
like
do
the
you?
Gen Z humor.
Oh,
It's very poor taste humor, but
how Gen Z? Because I've seen there being two distinct flavors of Gen Z humor. One is like how should I put this? Brain rot to such extreme extents that it's absurd to the extent of being funny, and just unfunny broccoli hair fucking I don't know. What's the Subway Racer tier humor?
um I I mean I spent 3 hours making and filming and editing a Minions tier list, so
Really?
yeah. So that's a 30-minute video that I uploaded. It's really bad.
Okay, then see, I'm gonna make sure to point people towards the YouTube channel so that they
Yeah.
can watch and make up their own opinions about the 30-minute minion tier list.
Yeah, and I'm re-debuting soon with a live 2D model, so
Boo, we hate Life to
boom.
do here.
I love both. I love how the 3D models, like how much you can do with them, especially with the Suvi's app.
Yeah,
It's like there's so much you can do. It's very programmable.
this is a Suvi appreciator household. Definitely. Yeah, Suvi does great stuff. And like it's all out there for free along with the resources. And if something doesn't work, you can just hit Suvi up on the Discord and
Yeah.
you're gonna receive like an in-depth breakdown on how to fix what you've broken.
Yep. Exactly.
This has been fun. I'll make sure to direct people to all of the places where you're present. And I'll see you around.
It was enjoyable being here.
Ah, well,
And I
thank you
look
for coming.
forward to I've checked out your channel before, so I look forward
Oh,
to seeing who else you
well,
interview.
well, listen, don't be a stranger. Drop by the Twitch as well.
I'll try. I want to see what goes on the Kuromaru streams.